war-stricken, poverty-ridden planet. You are safe. Help is on the way. Your prosperity is the core objective of our universal design. The path for humanity has spanned throughout ages to ensure the survival and prosperity of the human species. War is a liar who claims there isn't enough land, isn't enough wealth, isn't enough food for all people in all places to live in abundance. A different age is upon us. Fear not for the bursting sounds that echo across your red horizons. Prepare your life for the light that grows steadily brighter in the distance. As the dawn comes to rid your battlefields of darkness, the age of Illuminatium will begin. Fear nothing. We are always watching out for you. To find out more about our organization and your part in the universal design, visit Illuminati.am.
This just in, you're looking at what is obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the Vectron Pacific reactor near Seattle. We have unconfirmed reports.
CDC has ordered an evacuation of all non-essential personnel within a 5-mile radius.
The National Guard has begun distributing potassium iodide tablets.
This is coming in live. It is raw footage, appears to be some kind of statement from the KVA leader, Hades.
My fellow citizens of the world, today you are afraid. You are afraid because you have been woken from your sleep.
There are some days we never forget. Moments burned into our memory until the day we die. Where were you the day everything changed? 4 years ago, one man tried to destroy our way of life. One man tried to throw the world into darkness. It felt like we could never find our way back. But we did. Together. When you were vulnerable, we gave you our strength. When you were sick, we delivered you the cure. When there was chaos, we brought you order. Stability. Safety. A chance to start again. Who are we? We're the way forward.
Good afternoon, Saints. This is Minister Paul in Northern California. You know, the TV's been on mute all day long. I have 2 more videos I haven't even released. I just woke up with this unction in my spirit, and I want to show my wife this teaching that's on here, so I turned it on. I think it's just college football or something like that, but, okay. As I finished making the video about Watchmen, which you will see in about 10 minutes, I'll release it. I'm just reviewing it real quick. I looked up the other night, my wife and I were watching this movie on Lifetime Movie Network. It was just kind of like a date night, you know, and having a dinner. And I noticed it was a 2012 movie on the Lifetime Movie Network that they've changed their logo to something that really bothers my spirit. And if you know what I'm talking about, you'll see it. And I noticed in the background while they were driving that the skies was filled with chemtrails. Now look at this sky. This just caught my eye. See, when you're a watcher on the wall, God will show you what you need to see. We can go outside, and I will show you. This is not my focus, but our entire... Look, my goodness. Talk about timing. We are getting nailed, saints. Do you see that? This jet is going up. I hope you get that. Talk about timing. What he's doing is he's finding cloud cover, and he's doing the whole entire sky. See, he goes up. He's now going that way, exposed in the name of Jesus. Look how far he went down. He went that way and that way. He started over here. Look, there's an eagle again. There's your sign. You don't believe in signs? That I just happen to randomly come out here? Where is it? Do we get that? In the name of Jesus. Yeah, look, he just turned around. He's just kind of hovering over my house. He's behind that tree. So, I mean, what are the chances of every time I step out, this hawk or eagle flies over my house, and that this jet, which is now so high I can't even see it. So what you can basically see is that they're slowly trying to poison us. It's just part of Agenda 21 in the New World Order. Start watching, and you're going to see that everywhere. I'm glad that happened. Now watch this. Watch this commercial. I ain't even going to play audio. It doesn't even need no... Look, he's fleeing a city. It looks like a Google Earth map. This is a commercial for a Dodge truck. I'll run it. You're going to see this. I mean, it's astounding what is being fed into our mind. It is so important right now to be girded up in the Spirit and covered in the blood of Jesus, because we're being poisoned by this guy. We're being poisoned by what's on TV in our mind. The end is here. And it happens so suddenly. Watch. He's running out of the city. See the chemtrails in the back? He's fleeing the city. Look, an earthquake happens. And he's looking in the background. Look at that. And he's heading towards a cliff. And then there's some type of explosion.
It absolutely terrifies me to think about my son's generation growing up in a new world order. It absolutely terrifies me, because I think about my son and I think about how I grew up, and I know, and I want you to be prepared and understand that our children are not going to grow up in an America that you and I grew up in. They are not going to. It's a pipe dream if you think so, because it's absolute delusion, because things are changing so rapidly now. They're not going to grow up in that America that we had. They're just not. They're not going to grow up in that world that we lived in. They're going to grow up in a new world order. It's coming. And we have to be prepared to equip our children for a new world order, because it's coming. It's already here. But it's going to dominate and take over. And deceit is one of the main ways. People being deceived. Deceived by false religion. Deceived by being religious. Listen, that's the one thing people don't understand. You think the New World Order is going to be ran by atheists? No, it's going to be ran by religious people. You kidding me? All the cults and everything else going on right now, they're all different compartments of Satan's kingdom. And at the top, they all agree with each other. They're not separate. The first thing I think about is my generation, my son's generation. I wonder if I'll make it out of this life with my head. I think about that. I wonder if I'll make it out of this life as an old man, to live to be an old man, and to die an old man. I wonder if I will. I wonder if I'll be taken out. It's frightening to think about my son growing up in the New World Order. Just him growing up in that. Because it's coming. It's coming very quickly. You know, it's not as if it's a light matter anymore. It's not as if, you know, it's a long ways away. I don't see that. What I see today from the signs that we are watching and we're just seeing right in front of us, that things are moving forward quickly. I wonder if I'll live to be an old man and still hold on to these liberties that we have left, that we experienced in this country for so long. These are sobering thoughts. I don't pretend that they're not. They should stir up our thoughts. Will we be the generation that loses all liberty that is left? Will we be the one that fails our children's generation? I think about the Baptists that fought hard for the liberties that we abuse and care nothing for today. I think very soberly of how those God-fearing holy men would be ashamed to see sodomites parade around in pretended liberty and act as if that was what this once great lively experiment was meant to end up like. A bunch of sodomites dancing around. I think about how in my generation it's hard to find biblical preaching and biblical churches in the land of the fee and the home of the slave. Think about how my son's generation, and I look at the effeminate youth out there. Boys that don't want to be men and take care of wives, or boys that like boys and not women. I think about how American history is being completely erased. True history is being erased. How the Pope and his race pimps through the Masonic orders are trying to erase any bit of Southern heritage, a war on the South completely, and erase any bit of Baptist and Protestant heritage he possibly can. I wonder if my son's generation will stand for anything. Will they? The one place where the gospel rang out everywhere, where we still had much liberty. Will they stand? Will my son's generation, will the children in this room, will they stand?
If only I could make this message go viral.
A sexy commercial featuring Scarlett Johansson has been banned from appearing on air during this week's Super Bowl, but for all the wrong reasons. Folks who endured over 2 hours of Joaquin Phoenix close-ups, hoping to see the TNA behind the sultry-voiced operating system, Samantha in Her, will be disappointed to discover ScarJo wasn't the reason behind the commercial's ban. The ad, released by home soda system maker SodaStream, includes a pointed jab at Coca-Cola and PepsiCo.
Sorry, Coke and Pepsi.
Oh yeah, she done it. SodaStream.
In an interview with USA Today, SodaStream CEO Daniel Birnbaum called out Fox for being wimps and kowtowing to the demands of the soft drink giants. Birnbaum said his company has agreed to drop the apparently offensive line because he sees no other choice. This isn't the first time the company has landed in hot water for going after Big Soda. CBS rejected this SodaStream spot intended for last year's Super Bowl because they found it called out other brands a bit too explicitly.
The soul, especially when you have a connection to humanity and a connection to the planet that our species has been on for so long. I got involved in politics 25 years ago. I was just a mainline libertarian. And in my search for understanding the globalists and what their master plan was, I learned quite a lot. I learned what their master view is, what their end game is, what their cosmology stands for, what makes them tick. They are basically a predator class of parasites that feed on humanity and who have engineered humanity in the last 6,000 years to be dumbed down and servile and not to realize 1/100th of our true potential. But the more I study the globalist, the one world system cult, I realize they're not just after humanity. They're after the earth itself. They're after all the different ecosystems, the biospheres. That's why they claim they're the guardians of that. These are the deep truths. I hope you're listening. They claim they want to protect the earth. They want to protect the atmosphere. They want to protect the soil. They want to protect the plants and animals and creatures that live here. But they're the ones, in every case, radically pushing an agenda that destroys species, that destroys the environment, that irrevocably changes the genetic code of our planet. They are galactic vandals, mutilating this beautiful planet, our mother. And if you're going to be the group persecuting and prosecuting and assaulting the planet, God's creation, then you're going to pose as the guards of the keep, the kings of the castle, the men-at-arms, the saviors, so that you can carry out your work dismantling this planet. Because this planet is a launch pad for our species. And they want to see us dead at birth, dead at conception. This planet and all its species and the human species, guardians of the earth, put here to be guardians of this planet, are infected with an anti-human disease. The globalists want to play God and overwrite all this incredible ancient genetic technology that was seeded here on this earth. All of us are guardians of this planet, and that's why the enemy sells us the idea of going along with their plan, submitting to their tyranny, so that we could be good shepherds of this world, be good stewards, when they are the destroyers by every metric. They teach us to want to tax carbon and pay the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Al Gores and Bill Clintons and Barack Obamas of the world tens of billions of dollars a year to tax carbon, when the sun, water, carbon dioxide, and oxygen are the four energies or elements that cause life on this planet. They are assaulting carbon, the seed of everything. Just as important as light. Probably more important than water and oxygen. They attack the second most important element. These people are death. I've really sat back, not from some political view or even historical view, but from a deep understanding of our planet's ecosystems and gone, these people are trying to kill the damn planet with their geoengineering and all of the things they're doing. They're trying to stop this planet from giving birth to something the Creator planned to come out of this system. I didn't read this in books. I didn't get this at college. I got this from studying the elite and what they're doing. Let me ask you a more simple question. Do you want this planet to die? Because it's being killed. Do you have any sense of kinship to this planet? Do you have a sense of kinship to your ancestors and your progeny to come? Do you realize that you are the experience of all those that came before you to now and forward? Bridging the future, the present, and the past. That magic is there in your hands right now. And our globe is being killed. We are being brought into a great tyranny. That's why every decent institution, every system of health, every system of love and independence and chivalry, like the family, the father, the mother, the child, the boy, the girl, the he, the she, is under attack. Because the very life force of our species and this planet is in a war for survival. So I want to ask you a question. Do you realize that our evil leaders have produced more than 50,000 thermonuclear weapons? Do you realize those are weapons that they admitted they had back in the 40s, but were in mathematical equations 50 years before that? Do you realize they've got far more advanced weapons and technologies, and instead are looting this planet of its treasures, its minerals, and our human psyche, the greatest treasure, to build weapons for God knows what use by the genetically engineered developments taking place on this planet that are meant to merge in a blasphemy with the AI, artificially intelligent computer systems being developed by the elites on this planet, who they themselves believe are getting off-world direction in whatever it is they're building. This planet was organic, was slow to build, is beautiful, is strong, and has great potential, but instead has been hijacked. My gut, my spirit, my intellect at every level sees a military operation against humanity and the planet itself. We are here to protect this planet. And if you don't realize that and transcend the CNN, the Fox News of the world, and understand the real war that's going on, the enemy's going to win. I don't know all the answers. I don't have all the answers. All I know is everything good is under attack. Everything evil is being promoted. We have been given a psychological, cultural, weaponized virus to shut down and die. And while we're at it, kill the planet at the same time. I couldn't say I love humanity more than the planet, because humanity is part of this planet. And I don't want to see the enemy's dream come true, because it's a nightmare. You look at everything our elite do, they're not elite at all. They are wicked evildoers who are committed to domination of the life processes on this globe. They want to play God because they're not God. And so I want to encourage you on this Friday night, broadcasting worldwide. Here on Facebook Missions, we're going to post this to Instagram. We're going to post it to YouTube. We're going to post it to all the other platforms that are out there. I want to ask you, post it to all the platforms yourself as well. Because all I'm doing is here crying out against the dehumanization and the murder of this rock, this spaceship that we live on, by the mindset that is dominating our globe. Regardless of what you think of the people running things, they are bad news. They do not have our best interests at heart, and they are coming after humanity on every front. And the way they roll out the news, let's walk over here. The way they roll out the news with their human-animal hybrids and their plant-animal hybrids and all of it, just conditioning the public, keeping people in a trance from birth. The way they prey on us, it's just so obvious. It's so sickening. And I know that there's a greater force in the universe that overrides this evil, but it needs us to cry out with free will and to say, we see the lie, and we make the conscious decision in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, in that fourth and fifth dimension, not this third dimension that we exist in, but where our souls exist, in the fourth and fifth dimension, to say no to this great evil and to choose life and to choose free will and to choose a future for our species. Instead, we hear this siren song selling us to hate ourselves, to hate humanity, that we're ugly, we're failed, that we're killing the earth, so just die so the earth can go forward, while the very same people that tell us to die are the very same people killing the earth, changing its genetics, taking the life cycle and ending it with all their Terminator genes. Every fiber of my body, every fiber of my being, every fiber of my genetic soul tells me this is death of the enemy and is alien to this planet and alien to the great master architect that created this planet. A lot of foolish mainline right-wing Christians say, oh my God, he said the great architect. That's Masonic. Oh my God. No, the Bible says God is the great architect. And of course the counterfeits have come in and tried to claim they're God, but they're no God at all. The God I worship gave me love of my children, love of my woman, love of the sun coming in the morning and things that are good, all that just continues on and rewards itself over and over again. And I recognize the alien systems that come in and try to disrupt that and take control of it as parasitic systems. So I stand with the God that created this planet and the universe, and I stand against those that would pull it down. But whether you agree with me or not, there is an epic battle taking shape right now in the world. And our planet is being killed. And the technologies that we've been organically given, if we're allowed to thrive, will spread life to the lifeless heavens. Because this planet is like a composite eye on a dragonfly. It is the manifestation of God's consciousness living and experiencing the world and the universe through us. Life is God. Life is a child of God. Life is God giving birth to experience and consciousness and will and free will and all that comes with us. You simply have to decide you have free will and choose to go towards the light, go towards what's good, and not choose the evil. Because God can give you the gift of free consciousness, but when God gives you that gift, you then have the responsibility to choose to go back to the source where all that life came from and not join the fallen ones who were given free will and decided to create their own sick system because they're so hateful of life, they couldn't even emulate it because it's too powerful for them to even consciously imagine. Infowars.com is our primitive attempt at the defense of humanity, and we thank you for joining us there in this fight. And it's where the resistance undoubtedly begins, but it certainly doesn't end there. And I thank you all for your support. I should be back Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. with a live transmission. Infowars.com.
Do you have faith?
I have faith in my kids.
Me too.
Yeah, I have faith in my kids. And I have faith that, you know, as long as you keep moving forward, just keep walking forward, things will be all right, I suppose, you know. Faith in terms of religion, religion is not my specialty, you know.
The most feasible way is to please the spirits, is to deride Christ and his people, such as you see today in the rock music world. You see the entertainers, they have these crosses. Ladies got earrings, crosses. This is a form of blasphemy, a form of deriding Christ.
Do you have faith?
I have faith in my kids. I have faith that, you know, as long as you keep moving forward, just keep walking forward, things will be all right, I suppose, you know. Faith in terms of religion, religion is not my specialty, you know.
Witches teach that the Christian Bible is an absolute lie, created by the god of evil named Jesus.
I hereby pronounce this the final shot of the set. Wait a minute.
What's that?
I have never told anyone what I'm about to tell you. I like to dress in women's clothing.
Is when I dropped the information about Quincy Jones. He set up sex rings in Hollywood. I'm saying there's a homosexual ritual that they go through in the Illuminati secret societies. Quincy Jones brought in Fresh Prince, and his first movie was what? 6 Degrees of Separation. Brought in Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah set it off, licking and kissing on women. Are you following me? Yes. Tevin Campbell, his little sweet ass up and down Hollywood Boulevard. Go online and read where Tupac said he was asked by Quincy Jones to fuck him in the ass. When Tupac said no, that's when Tupac was marked for death. Why? Because Tupac was engaged to Quincy Jones's daughter. Quincy Jones's daughter was best friend was Aaliyah. Aaliyah was engaged to Dame Dash. Now, if y'all follow these people back, all of them either died or was brought to ruin.
Without TV, the Illuminati would never gain control of the world. There's symbols on the TV sets that are hypnotic symbols. You can talk to anybody that's a hypnotist and they can tell you, why do you think that you can sit there and somebody can scream in your ear half the time and you don't know they're screaming at you? There are things that are burnt into your mind through the TV sets that are subtle, that are symbols and words and action. 2 of the major networks in this country are completely Illuminati owned. Lock, stock, and barrel. ABC and CBS. And NBC is 90% Illuminati. Try getting a serious Bible-believing program on TV that preaches hardcore gospel. It'll never happen.
Another amazing man in Johnny's life, Hunter S. Thompson. Johnny became friends with Thompson before he filmed Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It was a friendship that endured for years.
Let's talk about Hunter Thompson. And your friendship with him.
Hunter and I, it was when I was researching Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and I was living in his basement, you know, and I happened upon this box as we were looking through the manuscript of Fear and Loathing.
So explain to the uninitiated who Hunter Thompson was.
He was, without question, I mean, I think the most important non-fiction writer of the 20th century. You know?
He reinvented a style of writing by putting himself into the situation, by living it, by putting himself into the situation, by living it.
I like to kill. And when you say kill, you're talking about what, neighbors? What? You know what I'm talking about? Shooting people, do No, but you're teasing when you say you like to kill, right?
Could you relax with him?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Well, tell us about the first time you ever met him.
There was a sort of scheduled meeting. It was about midnight, and I was sitting in the back of this bar, and suddenly the front door opened of the bar. I was way in the back, and I saw sparks, these hideous sparks that were kind of everywhere. And then I realized as he came closer, the sea was parting. People jumping and diving and hurling themselves to safety. I realized that he had a 3-foot cattle prod in his left hand. In his left hand, he had a 3-foot cattle prod. Right hand, he had a taser gun and a taser in his right. And then I heard, "Out of my way, you bastards!" What I heard was, "Out of the way, you bastards!" And then we shook hands, and then we went back to his house and built a bomb. I shot it with a shotgun.
And it went off?
Yeah, 80-foot fireball. Yeah, huge.
See, it does sound like fun.
Nitroglycerin and things like that.
We did this thing, Breakfast with Hunter, where he was in town, so I went to Johnny Depp and I went to go see him, and we picked him up in some car, and he had some inflatable blow-up doll that he was calling Ling Ling, and we drove around Hollywood before he went to this reading, and he kept beating the doll. And then he would take her out into the street and say, "You bitch!" And he would just be punching this blow-up doll on the street, and you see these cars swerving. And I mean, he was just always ready for a show that was beyond any sense of kind of decency, and went into some absurdist land that made your head spin.
I like to kill. I was hunting because I like to kill.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Shooting people, do
No, but you're teasing when you say you like to kill, right?
No, I'm not teasing. I used to like to kill.
Hunter S. Thompson, a friend of yours.
Later in life, just kind of veered off, you know,
right.
a little. In terms
Demons.
Veered off, you know,
right.
a little. In terms
Demons. Demons.
Do you have faith? Faith in terms of religion, I don't. Religion is not my specialty, you know.
The most feasible way is to please the spirits, is to deride Christ and his people, such as you see today in the rock music world. You see the entertainers, they have these crosses. Ladies got earrings, crosses. This is a form of blasphemy, a form of deriding Christ.
And if Washington doesn't have enough to talk about these days, the Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring. A call boy ring.
Aside from the fact that you had sex with some of these politicians, at some of these parties, did you recognize any prominent senators or congressmen or anybody?
I seen at the time Vice President Bush go in, and all he did was the kids perform oral sex on him. That was it.
Kids what?
Perform oral sex on him, and
the kid performed oral. Which of the black kid or the white kid?
Both of them. Well, when
President Bush came in, two separate parties. Once with a white kid, once with a black kid.
Yeah.
So you saw him twice.
Yeah.
And the kid had to perform oral sex on him.
The illumination of 1,000 points of light, and it is expressed by all who know the irresistible force of a child's hand, the irresistible force of a child's hand, of a friend who stands by you and stays there, a volunteer's generous gesture.
After the party was over, the ones that were involved with him, or the ones that he was trying to get political favors from, that won whatever they wanted, they would stay or they'd come in after the party was over or the next day. See, so at the party, nothing even abnormal. I mean, if somebody was in there and stuff, they'd see no abnormal activities going on, so they would, honestly be able to say that. And I've been to parties, but I've never seen anything, so.
I do that for, I like to kill. I was hunting because I like to kill.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Shooting people, do we?
No, but you're teasing when you say you like to kill, right?
No, I'm not teasing. I used to like to kill.
You know, he used to call me Colonel Depp. You know, he said, Colonel, we must produce this. You know, we'll produce this together. It'll be our, you know. And so that was the plan. Losing Hunter took me down because you know that these friends, these mentors, these teachers, these father figures, these, you know, these someone who you really. It was amazing to be accepted by them and to be loved by them.
He dictated exactly the way he was going to live his life.
Or maybe he didn't care.
Oh, well, he couldn't give a rat's.
Yeah.
He really didn't.
So it didn't make any difference what planet. It was all going to be about him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like to kill.
No, but you're teasing when you say you like to kill, right?
Hunter S. Thompson, who was the author of The Rum Diary and the author of many great books, including Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
He reinvented a style of writing by putting himself into the situation, by living it,
He's, for me, one of the great heroes. He's, for me, one of the great heroes. For me, one of the great heroes.
And when he died, you blew his ashes.
What Hunter wanted was to be blown out of a 150-foot cannon and shot into the stratosphere. And I think he knew that I was the only one stupid enough to make that happen, and I did.
Did it work?
Oh, yeah.
He came down all over all of us. You know, we were covered in Hunter's ashes. But the idea also is to take Hunter, you know, his ashes and then mix that in with gunpowder. There was something so poetic about that, you know, something so kind of symmetrical about Hunter becoming basically large bullets.
But today, the West Memphis Three have become a cause celeb. How can you be absolutely sure that these three men are innocent?
If there was the tiniest sliver of doubt, I wouldn't be sitting here.
They're cold-blooded murderers.
In your opinion, it doesn't add up that way.
In my opinion, and 24 jurors out of the state of Arkansas's opinion.
The West Memphis Three, convicted of a horrific crime, the murders of 3 8-year-old boys in Arkansas.
The little boys were found in a drainage ditch, mutilated and beaten to death.
The crime was believed to be part of a satanic ritual. Do you feel a sense of the clock ticking?
Oh, yeah.
Hello, I'm Whole Lotta Glenn, a.k.a. Hell, Water, Fire, and this is Hell War News for the 10th day of January 2015. 6015, if, you got some mind control patents out there on Hell Wars. Alright, let's get down to business. Mind control. MK Ultra back into this again. Yes. Got to get into mind control because obviously there's a lot of you who do not get mind control. You do not get the MK Ultra program. You do not get what's going on in the world very well. A lot of you call it hoax. A lot of you, you know, just aren't believing anything anymore. You're not getting it. So I picked this up from a channel just today, actually. Black Magic Tricks Revealed, Part 2, The Black Child. I advise you watch Part 1 and 2. This is a very interesting video. I will not play this video because I did not get permission to upload it, and it's over my time limit, so I wouldn't get it all in here anyways. But I highly suggest you check this channel out and check out this link, and I will give it to you at the bottom of the About section in this video. Back to mind control. U.S. patents on subliminal suggestion and mind control. Yes, there are devices for mind control. What are they? Well, your computer and your television are on this list. Yes, they are. Note, these are just portions of the patents available on the net which deal with mind control, mental and emotional influencing, perception, engineering, and brain functioning performed remotely and or directly through electronic media and other venues of methods of application. Keep in mind, these are patents filed in the public domain. Unknown and black ops technology created within the military-industrial complex obviously remain hidden. Clearly, the ability to control the mental process, attitudes, fears, and perceptions of mass America is clearly far more advanced than the average American citizen understands or would like to believe, and that statement is 100% fact, because every time I talk about MK Ultra, you all go fucking jelly fucking brain on me. Alright, let's get on to it. Nervous system manipulation by EM fields from monitors. Yes, that would be your television, your computer monitor, things like that. Abstract psychological effects have been observed in human subjects in response to simulation of the skin with weak electronic magnetic fields that are pulsed with certain frequencies near half a hertz or 2.4 hertz, such as an sensory renaissance. Many computer monitors and TV tubes, when displaying pulsing images, emit pulsed electromagnetic fields of sufficient amplitudes to cause such excitation. It is therefore possible to manipulate the nervous system of a subject by pulsing images displayed on a nearby computer monitor or TV set. For the latter, the image pulsing may be embedded in the program material, or it may be overlaid by modulating a video stream either as RF signal or as a video signal. The image displayed on a computer monitor may be pulsed effectively by a simple computer program. For certain monitors, pulsed electromagnetic fields capable of exciting sensory renaissance in nearby subjects may be generated even as the displayed images are pulsed with subliminal intensity. And that one was created on December 3rd, 2002, U.S. patent number 6488617. The next one I'll read out to you. Method and device for producing a desired brain state. Bruce Katz. Abstract. The method and device for the production and desired brain state of an individual contained means for monitoring and analyzing the brain state, while a set of one or more magnet-produced fields that alter this state. A computational system alters various parameters of the magnetic fields in order to close the gap between the actual and desired brain state. This feedback process operates continuously until the gap is minimized and or removed. Yes, November 26, 2002. Signal injection, coupling into the human vocal tract. Yes, rock bands use this. Subliminal messaging. Yes, you hear about it a lot. They don't get charged. They don't get charged for it. Well, the good case would be the rock band Judas Priest, when they were taken to court for subliminal messages in their music, and basically they won their case, even though subliminal messaging is a fact. Signal injection, coupling into human vocal tract. Abstract. A method are provided for enhancing or replacing the natural examination of human vocal tract by artificial excitation means, wherein the artificial created acoustics present additional spectral, temporal, or phase data useful for one, enhancing the machine recognized robustness of audible speech, 2, enabling more robust machine recognition of relatively audible mouth or whispered speech. The artificial excitation may be arranged to be audible or inaudible, may be designed to be non-interfering with another user's similar means, may be used in one or both of a vocal content enhancement mode or a complementary vocal track probing mode, or may be used for the recognition of audible or inaudible continuous speed or isolated spoken commands. There you go. There's like 23 patents here, and I don't have time to read them all, and you can read them all for yourself. This is all 100% fact, and keep in mind, these patents are only the patents for the public, not the patented ideas of the military-industrial complex. So there you go. And right off the hopper, your television and your computers. The number one, your television and your computers. So there you go. Gotta get this shit out there, people. Really. Share it, do what you want. I'll leave you the link to this page so you can read the patents on this. You'll want to Google mind control patents just like this. Put it in your Google or any search browser, a search engine, and see what you come up with. And you will find one hell of a lot of brainwashing fucking methods out there to fuck you over. Hell War News. I'm out of here. And thanks for giving out that information. Again, I'm going to take you back to the channel, The Black Child, Illuminati Black Magic Tricks Revealed. You'll want to watch this video. Very interesting. A very well done video. And the guy knows what the fuck he's talking about. 100% fact. So there you go, people. Hell War News. Giving you more fucking info on MK Ultra. I'm out of here.
Hello, welcome to Truth Sentinel, watching over the truth in the news. Today's date is the 17th of September 2014. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. Really appreciate it. I'm currently in London. We'll be in Ukraine within a few days. So maybe go and do some interviews over there, or just at least keep an eye on the situation anyway. Today's news. Both sides in the Scottish referendum debate are making their final pitch at the moment to voters on the last day of campaigning. The latest polls have shown that it's neck and neck, sort of 50-50. I can't help thinking that after seeing how desperate the Westminster elite are over this issue, they're not going to let people vote yes. Whether via vote rigging, pulling in favours from various people, which they've been doing anyway. You know, they've been asking bankers, nuclear power leaders, and all manner of different types of people in the military to stand up and say, no, you can't do this. So, but I think if they get any wind that there's any chance, they will do something. They're not going to let this happen, but I really hope it does happen. If it does happen, then great. I support Scotland in whatever decision they make, but I really hope they make the obvious decision, which is to get the hell away from the Westminster elite. I mean, whether Alex Salmond has good intentions, I honestly don't know, but he couldn't possibly be worse than the guys in Westminster at the moment. And they've shown their true colours and their desperation in trying to scare, manipulate Scottish voters. I mean, Cameron's speech, I think, that he gave recently reveals so much about their governments and the methods of control. Threatening economic collapse, no return if they say yes. No help from consulates abroad. no protection from ISIS. When in fact, if Scotland left ISIS, they would probably be a lot safer. They wouldn't be associated with England really, and with the military and with Cameron, so they'd actually be safer. I hope people can see through this, and I think they probably can. In an open letter to the Sun newspaper, 14 former armed forces chiefs said a no vote on Thursday's referendum was critical for their security. They're obviously looking after their own interests too, and most of the people standing up and speaking out against the Yes campaign have their own agendas. It's been really nice though to see the Westminster guys squirming. I'm talking about Cameron and all the leaders of the other parties. And I've noticed a lot of NLP going on as well, neuro-linguistic programming, carefully worded speech, because that's all these guys do, is just read speeches that are written to them by other people. Nothing comes from the heart. So when Cameron says he's going to be heartbroken, well, I don't think he will be heartbroken. He might be a bit annoyed that he might lose some kind of interests and finances himself, but he's not going to be heartbroken. Not for the people of Scotland, that's for sure. He's just lying. But then I noticed he used phrases like the family of nations. Now, not many people use that phrase when they talk about the UK. So why suddenly dig that out of the bag? I mean, it's the same ploy that Coca-Cola use when they stick sis and bro and family on their Coke cans, because people are supposed to associate that with things they love. Hence, they're going to then have feelings of love towards Coca-Cola. And they're trying the same thing. I hate that kind of stuff, and I think it should probably be banned, to be honest. Deliberate manipulation. It's not nice anyway. Or at least make people aware of it, aware of what's going on. And to be honest, if you're Prime Minister, just speak from the heart. Say what you think. Stop getting people to write everything for you, Okay, and Obama and Cameron have been focusing on the ISIS threat as well, looking for any form of action or law that would have previously raised eyebrows, but continuously referring to ISIS, saying we need to do this because of ISIS. Take away freedom of speech, take away privacy, all because of ISIS and the threat, which Cameron said could go on for decades. We'll talk about that later with Anthony, formerly from the University of Bill Kent, but now moved to another university, which I mentioned last week and I'll mention again later. Also, Ebola has been big in the news this week. President Obama has called the West Africa Ebola outbreak a threat to global security. So here's another threat, here's another thing to worry about. He announced a larger US role in fighting the virus, including sending 3,000 US troops to the region. Now, that's more than the amount of people who've died so far, as far as I'm aware. It's very peculiar. I don't trust the reason why he's doing this. My alarms always go off whenever they do something because they say they care. Then there's something going on, because they don't care. So why is he sending 3,000 US troops to the region? Could they be collecting samples to bring back to cull the population, the rest of us basically? Anyone who thinks that that's ridiculous and a conspiracy theory, just listen to some people talking. Listen to Prince Philip, Bill Gates, Ted Turner, a lot of people. Population has been deemed as getting out of control, and they would actually feel they'll be doing some good by culling some people say 15-20%. I think that was Bill Gates who mentioned 15%. Others, like if you look at the Georgia Guidestones, I think they're talking more like 90%. So the Ebola virus could be a concern, but I'm very suspicious about what those troops are going to be doing over there. A trial of the experimental vaccine against the Ebola virus is to begin in Oxford today, I believe. Now, it's very strange because has been a number of companies that were asked to work on vaccines for the Ebola virus in sort of up to 7 years ago, or 7 or 8 years ago, and they just perfected their antidote and vaccines in the same year that the worst ever case of Ebola broke out. Sure, it's just coincidence, of course. Anyway, they're either going to do this to cull the population a bit, or they're going to do it to raise money, create fear, create panic, and then start selling the pharmaceutical industry solutions to the problem. I noticed in Thailand, I keep a bit of an eye on Thailand, obviously because I travel there quite a lot, and you know, there's been a murder in Thailand on a beach resort, Koh Tao I think it was, 2 British people killed, and I noticed straight away they were saying they were focusing all their attentions not on British people or foreigners or Thais, but on Burmese immigrants. That's because the Thais pretty much hate the Burmese immigrants, and there has been plenty of cases in the past where they've actually pinned crimes on the Burmese people who happen to be there. It's a bit of a corrupt police system in Thailand too, you know, as it's probably a bit of an understatement. I do love Thailand, love the people, love the food, love the beaches, but and actually the police don't tend to bother foreigners, but yeah, they're pretty corrupt anyway, as they are in a lot of other countries, of course. I heard Julia Toriansky talking about anarchy last week, and in the past I've always thought, you know, anarchy, some nice ideas, but actually in practice it wouldn't work. But I was quite impressed with what Julia was saying about it. I saw her on Alex Jones as well, so I've contacted her, and I hope that she may come on at the end of this month anyway to talk to us as well about anarchy, about Bitcoin, about the dark web, and lots of other issues as well. Another person I'm hoping to come on, who will be coming on actually, sorry, is Sheila Zielinski. If anyone listens to Hagman and Hagman, she'll probably be on, yeah, she will be on next episode. So if you know Sheila Zielinski, tune in for that next week. Okay, the t-shirts have arrived, so I just wanted to say there's 2 ways to win a free t-shirt over the next 3 months, and say Christmas time, and that is free t-shirt to the person with the most interesting 1.5-minute voice comment, which you can do on the voicemail system we've set up. Now, to get to it, first of all, you need to make sure you're on the Truth Sentinel channel on YouTube. There are other sites that put in our videos up, and we're very grateful for that. But if you need to use any of the facilities like the voicemail, the chat room, make a donation, you need to make sure you come to our channel, which is Truth Sentinel. You type it into Google, it'll either come up as Truth Sentinel or Truth Sentinel 2. Actually, Truth Sentinel is the main channel. Truth Sentinel 2 is a channel with a lot of subscribers, but unfortunately I need to ask you, if you are listening to that channel, to subscribe to Truth Sentinel, not Truth Sentinel 2, as we had some problems with that channel, and we can only upload the videos onto the Truth Sentinel channel. And also, if you type in things like Scott Sentinel 9, Truth Sentinel on YouTube, you'll find it. And basically you can donate on there. If you want to get a t-shirt, just donate. I'm taking it down to £28 at the moment, yeah, so I'm using that old capitalist trick of knocking £2 off, so it sounds a lot cheaper, when in fact it's only £2 cheaper, but never mind. Anyway, so the competition is whoever can come up with the most interesting, informative, even funny comment over the next 3 months on the voicemail system. Please use that. You click on the icon at the top right of the page, or go to the About section, and you'll actually see it says voice message. Try and find that if you can. You can always hit pause now and go and have a look for that. find the chat room. It'd be great if people started using that, because I'd like to make the channel more interactive. Also, to anyone who does a publicity stunt that brings in the most new listeners, make a video of it, take a screenshot of whatever you've done, or take a photo, send it to us, and you'll get a free t-shirt too over the next, so that competition lasts over the next 3 months as well. Yeah, please do use the chat room, the voicemail, donate if you can. And last episode we joined up with Pete Wicker, The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, and we hope to join him again at some point, probably when I'm in Ukraine. Going to Ukraine this week, so may do a report or two from there. Today we're joined by a very special lady, Jasvinda Sangira. Type her into Google if you want, and you'll find out that she's listed by the Guardian newspaper as one of the top 100 most inspirational women in the world. Prime Minister David Cameron said that Sangira sort of caught his attention about forced marriages, and it was due to her campaigning and relentless lobbying of government to criminalise forced marriage that it was finally announced in the 2012 Queen's speech that forced marriage would become a specific criminal offence in England and Wales. So that law has now come into being, I believe. And regardless of the accolades she's achieved, I mean, it's quite obvious that she's doing a lot of good work. And we're very glad that she came and spoke to us. She's the accolades she has got is the Woman of the Year Award 2007, Pride of Britain Award 2009, Global Punjabi Society Award 2012, Cosmopolitan Wonder Woman Award 2010, Inspirational Woman of the Year Award 2008, Asian Woman Achievement Award 2007, Ambassador for Peace Award 2008. So she's quite a lady anyway. And let's go and listen to the interview. We're talking about honour killings and forced marriages. Honour killings, you may have heard in the news. And if you come from, say, a more Western culture, you might not be familiar as to why they occur. And I just thought it would be good to chat to someone about this and find out a little bit about the honour system. And, you know, if we can do anything to help, it would be great. So here we go, and let's listen to the interview. Hello, Jasvinda.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to Truth Sentinel.
Good to be here.
Thanks very much for coming on and speaking to us today about this topic. And I thought we could start off with the concept of honour, or bringing shame upon a family, because a lot of people from Western families probably don't understand that, the actual concept itself. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, I'll speak from personal experience with somebody who experienced an honour system and lived a whole life around fearing dishonouring the family and shaming them, and if I did, it would have put me at risk. So I'll just explain my own experience in relation to it for people to understand. I was born in Britain. I'm one of 7 sisters. I have one brother, and growing up as a girl was very different to growing up as a boy. I very quickly understood from a very young age, from the age of 5 years old, how girls had the position of more or less being subservient, in all honesty, to my brother, to the men in the family. And as we got older, we learnt how we had to be modest and dress modestly. We had to tie our hair back, and we couldn't cut our hair. Then when we got into adolescence, as a young teenager, we understood we couldn't wear makeup, we couldn't speak to white people, and that's what my family would say. We couldn't integrate, and we couldn't go to a school disco, let alone date a boy. We couldn't even talk to a boy. All these things were regarded as shameful, dishonourable behaviours, and we were chaperoned everywhere, not allowed to go out on our own and do things that could attract attention, the attention being something shameful towards the family. So the kind of things that people take for granted every single day, in terms of your freedom, your right, the right to even marry who you want to, the right to an education and have aspirations, the right to experiment with makeup and your sexuality. All those things were deemed dishonorable. And if you did them, then you put yourself at risk. You were at risk of being emotionally abused, physically abused. You put yourself at risk of significant harm, being forced into a marriage. And of course, if you look at cases like Cecilia Ahmed, who was murdered by both of her parents in 2003, she was actually murdered. So they deemed her to be too westernized, dishonoring the family, and she was killed. So it's a system that exists within a family, and it doesn't exist in isolation. Many family members uphold it. Many women, I have to say as well, they uphold it. Men can enforce it. Women can enforce it. It exists not just in the family, but in the community. You become the eyes and the ears to that girl, that person, reporting back to the family if they think she's behaving dishonorably. So you're not an independent person. You live your whole life adhering to codes of honor and fearing breaching codes for the fear of what could happen to you. And I've tried to break it down in the most simplest terms to try and describe it to you. And at Carmen of Honor, the charity that I founded, every victim caller to the helpline that rings us, and we have over 800 calls a month, has an experience of an honor-based system within their family.
And why do these families care so much about what other families think about them? Is it connected to religion, or is it connected to the social makeup of that particular type of society? What families really care about in terms of the honor system and what it does to a family is it upholds their reputation. So we have the power to dishonor our family. That means a dent in the reputation of the family. Because if your daughters behave according to an honor system, well, then you have a very good reputation as a family. And if your daughter is upholding the traditions of the family, of which one is an arranged marriage, I'm not talking about a forced marriage, and she says, well, actually, I don't want to have an arranged marriage. I want to marry, somebody I want to marry. Then it almost is received as they're going against tradition. And as for religion, well, actually, religion talks about freedom and independence and protection. So it's not religion, but very often the victims are ingrained to believe that they are a bad Muslim or a bad Sikh or a bad Hindu if they go against an honor system. So the family are worried that, again, they could be perceived as raising dishonorable children who don't uphold the religion the way they perceive it, or traditions. And again, it goes back to the reputation. That's the issue. The caring about what other people think comes before your own children. And the way to explain that is, I think about my sister Rubina, it was her birthday on September the 9th, actually. She would have been 51 years old. She took her own life and set herself on fire in her very early 20s. Now, my family's view was it was better for Rubina to take her life than for her to divorce her husband. And that is very sick, but it's a reality. Because in the community sense, a woman divorcing her husband, in this particular community, my community, which was actually a Sikh community, I have to say, it was awfully shameful for you to divorce your husband. The psychology of it's better to take your life than to do that. You can imagine how strong it is. Yeah, I mean, when I heard the story about your sister, it did make me feel a bit ill. It was just so horrible. I mean, is it your sister's death that helps motivate you to keep campaigning about this as well? Absolutely,
absolutely. Rubina's death, that was her name. Rubina's death was actually the trigger for me to own the fact that I wasn't this horrible perpetrator that had dishonored her family. I finally owned that this had been done to me. Actually, I was the victim. I haven't betrayed my family and dishonored you guys. You've made me feel that and made me internalize that as guilt and shame. You did this to me, and Rubina's gone now. So her death enabled me to break my silence and come out of hiding and go back to my hometown in Derby and develop a project. The project Carmen of Honor is there because of her memory. It was founded in 1993, and it lives on to reach women like Rubina, who was so isolated, who actually put this honor system before making a life choice to leave your husband. That was the more important thing, because she'd been ingrained to believe that. So the role of common of honour is breaking silences and reaching the most isolated people who fundamentally do not have the support of their families. Their families send them back to perpetrators because of honour.
And did you ever contemplate suicide yourself in your own situation?
I did, yes, as a teenager, 15-year-old girl who was being told, you are going to marry this man in this photograph. I mean, I was told that at 14, actually. But it really homed in at 15 because that's when the pressure really mounted. So I attempted suicide by swallowing tablets. My family knew that, and they didn't allow me to seek any medical attention. I was given lots of coffee and told to walk up and down in the living room. And later on in my life, again, I attempted suicide in the same way as a teenager, again, because I was missing my family terribly. When you make that decision to leave your family, sadly, the majority of them, in terms of the victims, certainly for me, are faced with being ostracized by their family, and I was disowned and made to feel this horrible human being, and I missed them terribly.
While I was reading about you, I came across one case where you were talking about a girl who'd been repeatedly raped by her new husband, and she was allowed to come back to the UK to sponsor her husband's application for a visa, and she begged her mum for help when she came back, and her mum said it's your duty to stay with him even though he's beaten her, and she said if you have to die in that marriage, you die. To me, that there's such a detachment there, and I can't quite understand, like, is there a concept of love in these families to start off with? I mean, is there feelings of love towards their sons and daughters? Because it just seems like how you could go from sending someone to school, hugs, saying positive things, and then to this kind of level. It just seems,
Take it back a step, and how you can go from giving birth to somebody and then doing that to them. No, you're absolutely right. It's incomprehensible because you feel that because you are a decent human being that actually knows right from wrong. And, with respect to that mother, the justifications that she's making are not good enough. She is reinforcing the honour system and the code, where she could be somebody who actually instigates a change and decides, well, I'm not going to let my daughter go through with this. You're right, that is not an isolated case. We hear cases like that all the time on the helpline, where girls are taken abroad, passports taken off them, they are forced to marry, so they're repeatedly raped. They come over here, then families force them to sponsor these foreign nationals into this country. And they use pressure, force, they even use coercion. They'll say things like, well, just call him over here and then, get him to become a British subject and then, you can leave him. But that isn't true because it just goes on and on. Then you've got to have kids and it goes on and on. So the mothers should be breaking the cycle, and, there is nothing in Islam, Sikhism, Hinduism, or tradition that says that is acceptable. In fact, it says the opposite.
Would the mothers be scared themselves of any repercussions if they did say anything?
Well, sure. Maybe they would be scared themselves. The key perpetrators in my life were not men, they were women. It was my mother. She was a key perpetrator, and my sisters also. My father could say, well, he turned a blind eye, but in terms of who was enforcing the physical punishment and the emotional abuse, it was my mother. But, she was married as a young teenager herself. She was under the age of 16. But she could have said, I want different for my children. We were born in Britain. We went to school here. My mother was born in India. We do have the power to say, actually, we're not doing this for our kids anymore. But I can do that with my own children today. They will never inherit that legacy of abuse because I ran away from home. They were to inherit it. But these women have got to stand up and be counted and speak out against this. They do have a choice. I accept it might take courage. They may be fearful of the repercussions from within their family, from the community. So what is the alternative? You watch your daughter suffer horrific abuse or even take her own life or die.
And did you think your mother, or did your mother display any kind of pain about the fact that your sister killed herself?
No. Actually, when Rabina died, my mother's health deteriorated within 18 months, and within around 3.5 years, she died. And on her deathbed, I actually had to negotiate being allowed to go to the hospital because my mother, even on her deathbed, didn't want me to be in the same room where the family were coming because I was the horrible secret. But I refused to leave her bed when she was dying. You know, so here you have, she's in a hospice, she's got cancer, the doctor said she will die in the next few hours, and my mother's telling me to leave before people get there, which I refused to do. But her dying words, I don't know if anybody's ever heard anybody die, but they have like a rattle, they call it the death rattle. Before she died, her last words were, in Punjabi, Rabina, I'm coming to you. So she never spoke about my sister for all those years. Her health deteriorated, but they were her last words. So she always carried it with her, but was not able to show that. Because if my mother, like with me, I'm disowned, if my family had accepted me back into their fold and into that community, the community would have cast aspersions on them. How can you allow your runaway daughter to come back? What example is that setting to the rest of the community? And the other girls might get ideas. Same with Rabina. You know, she took her own life. I heard people say it was a better option than for her to divorce her husband. If my mother had spoken about that, again, those people in the community may have come out and said, well, how would it have been better for her to divorce her husband? Do you see what I'm saying? So they're constantly thinking about what people think, you know. In the local Gurdwara, the local church where my mother was a religious Sikh woman, she used to go to the local church. The women, I used to call it the gossip shop because the woman in there, as a little girl growing up, oh, she used to be talking about so-and-so's daughter and so-and-so's daughter, and have you seen that girl down the road causing shame, and have you heard that girl run away from home? See what I'm saying? There's this constant, like, bickering that goes on, and it's rooted in notions of how intact is your reputation, and if it isn't, we're throwing stones at you.
Do you think some people use religion as an excuse to abuse and control people, when in fact they always were an abuser and controlling type of person?
Yeah, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. And we can say that about Christianity through centuries as well, where religion is used as a tool to oppress people, and it's certainly safe to say in these cases. And I know that because that happened to me personally. I used to go to the local Sikh temple with my mother. You know, I didn't really understand what they were saying when they were reading from the Sikh Bible, but equally, faith leaders were not saying this is wrong. You know, it's wrong to treat your daughter like this, so it's wrong to force your children into marriage. So there was no counter message other than the message my mother was telling me, which was, you have to marry who we say because it's written in the Sikh Bible. So how can I challenge that if I'm being indoctrinated to believe that? And if you did something wrong, you know, same with a lot of the Muslim people who are in the helpline, they will say to us, I'm a bad Muslim because I'm disobeying my parents and I should obey them. See what I'm saying? They will use it in a way in order to manipulate our victims instead of allowing the religion, which is what we need to be doing, and this is what we do with victims, is empower it. You can use it to empower you. Because your religion fundamentally speaks out against abuse, against forced marriage, against murder. So it's a difficult transition when you've been indoctrinated and conditioned to believe that this religion means you have to abide by an honor code or behave in a certain way. And all of a sudden somebody's saying to you, well, actually you don't, because that was wrong. There's no counter message for these people who are indoctrinated. And you learn your rights and wrongs from your family. So if your parents are saying this to you, you take it as almost as the word of God.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that it's not just about the Sikh religion. There's there's lots of problems in all religions, really. I mean, a lot of organised religions have kind of like a hierarchy, and it often seems like people are making the rules rather than these were the rules that you can find in maybe the text, or people are interpreting the rules to suit their own ends sometimes. Yeah, and people would refer to that as being cultural. You know, this is what they are doing. They're making up the rules as they go along. And they do, but they're doing it to align themselves to an honor system to ensure that traditions are maintained. An arranged marriage is a tradition, without a shadow of a doubt, for somebody above the age of 16 that has the mental capacity to say yes or no. So where you have a person saying, okay, I respect the tradition of an arranged marriage, but I don't want to get married.
And then you have the pressure of parents saying, well, you're going to get married because we say so. This is an arranged marriage. That becomes force. But what the family are doing is they're trying to maintain the tradition of an arranged marriage through force, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it seems like it's also about obedience. Like,
yeah,
people like to control people in a certain situation. They don't like it when someone is almost rebelling against them, and they feel like they're losing control. And some people can really react to that.
The thing is, I'm a parent. I have 3 children, okay? And as a parent, my children have got rules. You know, I want their safety is paramount to me. You know, I don't want them to be mixing with vulnerable, complex behaviors and whatever. So I parent them. But my parenting does not allow me to put them at risk. It does not allow me for them not to embrace their independence and the rights that they have. This is not parenting. Although these families that want their children to behave according to an honor system would call it, we're doing our best for our kids. That's what they would say. You know, us finding you somebody to marry and you having to marry that person is in your interest. We're doing it in your interest. So it would be dressed up like that, which is wrong, in all honesty. And I always use Shafila Ahmed's case because Shafila, you know, she was born in Bradford, moved to Warrington as a young kid. Her ambition was to be a barrister, okay? As a parent, you know, she was an A-star student. She had over 8 great GCSE grades. I would be proud of that kid if that kid was mine. They saw that as a cause of shame. You know, she lit up a room when she walked in it. She expressed herself. She had mates. She was popular. All that was received as dishonorable behavior. They couldn't handle that. So
well, I don't understand that. So how's the having the A levels? How's that embarrassing?
But because they were her GCSEs and she only managed to go to college for a few weeks because she's got ideas above her station. She's thinking independently. She's got aspirations. Their plans were to get her married off, which they drugged her in this country, put her on a plane when she was 16 and a half, and got her to Pakistan, where they said, right, now you're getting married to deal with you, and having those ideas above your station, you know, wanting aspirations, being intelligent, wanting to be a barrister, going out with your mates, just integrating, and all those things that we expect any normal teenage kid to do. So to prevent that, she filled herself half a bottle of bleach, and then came back to the UK. You know, she's on a A&E in one of our hospitals for 8 weeks, and the professionals send her back home, and then subsequently she's murdered. The point I'm making is that any parent would be proud of to have a child like that. They saw that as a challenge because they believed that person was not adhering and upholding the honourable reputation of the family, so they wanted to deal with her. They tried it by marriage, but she swallowed the bleach. That wasn't working. She still persisted in, I want to learn, I want to be a barrister. So in the end, they took her life.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, it reminds me a bit of that Malala situation. The girl who was sort of campaigning against, you know, to try and get girls to take part in education, and then ended up getting shot. Do you think there's some correlation there? Yeah, it goes back to, you know, the empowerment of women, and you know, we are regarded as being subservient in some way within these communities. You know, the gender roles are not equal between men and women. You don't have a right to be educated. Your life is mapped out before you. You will be getting married off. My mother used to say to me, the only reason why I send you to school is because it's a law. If I had a choice, you wouldn't be, because she was preparing daughter-in-laws for the future. So yeah, it goes back to that question. You know, we're not all equal. In fact, women are, you know, fundamentally given a very subservient position, and also we have the power to dishonor our families through our behavior. So our families control our sexuality as women. That doesn't happen with men, that happens with women. Yeah, I mean, as a result of some of this, have you at all felt yourself becoming a little bit anti-men or anti-religion either? No. Well, I when I left home, you know, I
I became an atheist because this religion did this to me, and I was blaming the religion. Because if your family are saying it's religion, you have to do this, be a good Sikh, this is the religion, which I was being told, you know, I'm going to resent something that has oppressed me, and that's how I felt. So I was an atheist for a while, and then I didn't read a book until I was 27 years old in my life. I left school with no qualifications, and then I went on to university and I studied women in Sikhism, and I realized from the reading that Sikhism was built on a foundation of equality and compassion. It was actually developed to abolish the caste system, because the caste system, the gurus who preached about Sikhism talked about how it made people unequal. You know, we can't have those divisions. We have to have equality. So all these messages I was getting from my own research actually were the opposite to what I had been taught at home, obviously, because if my mother thought for 1 minute I thought that about my religion, well, I'd be using it to empower myself, would I not? So I'd been too far gone by then, and I'm actually now a baptized Christian. And I was baptized years ago. But the point is, I came to religion myself. I'm not anti-religion at all. In fact, the religions, from my perspective, and the religious leaders have a role to come out and stand up and be countered in saying forced marriage is not religious. In fact, you know, we can use the religion to speak out against forced marriage and murders. And I don't hear them saying that, sadly. So,
is there any men that come out and campaign against this these topics?
We at Common Honor support men and women. So men are also affected by forced marriages and honour abuse as well. Their experiences in terms of how they're socialised is very different to girls, okay? But nevertheless, they can become victims of forced marriage and honour abuse. And I'm sure people reading this or hearing this will think, yeah, well, what about men? Men are victims, but they don't experience it in the same way as women do. We see a lot of gay men whose family will want to marry them off to hide their sexuality. So these are Asian gay men, South Asian gay men, whose family realize they're gay, so they want to get them married off very quickly because they don't want people to realize in the communities, you know, that they are gay. That is a huge no-no with respect to reputation.
Right. You've written a number of books, and one of the books was about your travels in India, I believe. How different do you think are the problems of women in India in relation to honour killings and forced marriages compared to the UK?
Well, I think the scale of the problem is far greater in India, and the support is terrible. It really is. In comparison to what we have here in the UK, what you don't have in India is you don't have government support. You have a legal system where women are raped and abused. They're queuing up to, you know, put their files in, and their cases can take years. If women flee abuse, there's nowhere to house them. You know, so they stay in situations for that reason. It is horrendous in terms of the lack of regard and recognition that this is a real problem. It was the same in Pakistan and in India. And you need government intervention, you need the police. At least we have a police force that takes on the role of police in this. And over there, some of the police officers are like-minded, same like-minded as the perpetrators. And we saw that with recent attacks in India, where police officers turned a blind eye to a woman being raped by men because of her behaviour. So, you know, it's really deeply ingrained, and these things are allowed to happen because there it's overt, it's in your face, and people aren't doing anything. Here it's covert, it's hidden. These communities exist, the mindset exists here, but it's not overt. The self-policing in these communities is happening every single day. There are communities out there that know the next door neighbour's being forced into marriage from the same community, that know a girl has disappeared, and they're not reporting it.
Just to go back to, I just wanted to go back to the concept of love in these kind of cultures. Does it exist? I mean, the concept of love towards the sons and daughters, attachment and bonding, or is it a bit? Is it different? Because I just wanted to sort of get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, well, of course it exists. You know, there is a preference of males to females, and that still exists, and we know that as well. You know, we had a debate in this country this year around the high proportion in South Asian communities of abortive female fetuses to males. That is happening in this country, which it still is. But in terms of attachment, it does, absolutely. Now, this doesn't exist in all communities, by the way, and I'm not, pleased, I think I'm generalizing. It's not just South Asian either. It's also, we see these cases in Kurdish, Iranian, Somalian, African, even a small percentage of tribal communities. And dual heritage children can report if they live within families that operate on the system. But there are like-minded people out there who are decent human beings. We're not hearing them. Where the attachment differs, where a child is born within a family that operates an honor system, I'm sure the love for a child is there, but it has to be, first and foremost, the priority is given to this child being raised to ensure that they do not dishonor their family. So that person is almost conditioned to believe that if you love your parents less if you don't behave in a certain way, because families will be using emotional blackmail as well. I mean, for me, love is unconditional when it comes to a child. You know, a child doesn't have to be born. Every child is entitled to unconditional love and regard. Yes, we parent to protect them. In these cases, where you have an honor system and a child is born, the attachment and the love is very much about the conditions. We raise you, but we are raising you with the condition that you do not bring shame on this family. Therefore, you have to behave in a certain way, and you do that because you love your mother and we love you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The one thing I was going to say, though, is some of these killings seem so brutal. Like, there's actual hatred there. Like, you know, I've heard of acid, cutting faces, mutilation.
Sure.
A father-in-law gouged a UK woman's eyes out because he felt that she was dishonouring the family. Why do you think that's the case? Why is there that feeling? Seem like the real hatred there, to intention to cause pain, not just make a point. You know.
Well, the hatred is about the dishonour. That's what the hatred is about. We saw it with Benaz Mahmood, who was repeatedly raped by 4 people in the family. Sorry, her father didn't rape her. Multiple rape because they wanted to kill her dishonourable spirit. So,
but really, you know, when it comes to things like that, I mean, surely it must have been a more of a sort of partly a kick for them as well. They're getting to have sex with someone. They could hardly feel like they're actually doing her a favour. No. The point I'm making, I mean, the whole thing is abhorrent. It's wrong. But what I'm talking about is where you have an honour crime. Okay, our victim, and we would call her a victim or him a victim. The family doesn't see that person who's dishonoured the family as a victim. That person is a perpetrator. Okay, so the family in these killings will see that person as somebody who needs to be punished and needs to be dealt with. Okay? Yeah.
Depending on how dishonourable they thought it was, whatever they have done, will be the severity of the punishment. So Benaz Mahmood, she was seen kissing aboard a tube station. That was deemed so high up there in the stakes of dishonour that she did not only deserve to die, but she deserved to die a horrific death because of how dishonourable it was what she did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I've heard of cases where someone's just looked at a boy and that's resulted in their death. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, the kind of cases like Esma Nazir. You know, she graduated and she had ambition and she was, you know, family didn't like that. The fact that she also had a boyfriend. A girl called Roxana Naz, who went to my school, she was taken out of education in Derby because they suspected she had a boyfriend. Well, she did actually. They realised she did. So she was forced to marry. She came back to Britain, sponsored this guy. She had 2 children. She's now 7 months pregnant. Her mother suspects the child she's carrying is not her husband, so calls a family meeting to discuss, right, this kid might not be yours, so you've got 2 choices, Roxana. You either abort that child at 7 months or we're going to kill you. That was a choice they gave her. And in their mindset, it was a choice to be had, and she refused. The mother, sat on her legs, and the brother strangled her to death. And that was their perception. They perceived the child she was carrying was not her husband. There was no actual evidence that it wasn't her husband. So you can even be significantly harmed or murdered, even if the family don't have any evidence that you've caused dishonour. If they even think it would be enough to put you at risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Why wouldn't she have been able to escape in that situation?
Well,
would she have been able to, or would she have just been under too much surveillance?
Well, again, let's go back to it. If your family operates an honor system, they're watching you. Not just your family, the eyes and the ears of the community, the taxi drivers, the woman down the road at the corner shop. Everybody is reporting back to that family. Surveillance is something that is very up there in terms of ensuring that that child in that family does not cause shame. So our victim is very isolated because they have multiple people watching them. So they have multiple perpetrators. With regards to Roxana, I don't know. Our job is to reduce the isolation of victims. Had she known about a helpline like Carmen of Honor, we would have reached out to her.
Or would there been part of her that would have thought that maybe her family were bluffing, that they wouldn't do that to her?
Roxana was called to a family meeting. Her mum and her brother was there, so she was just going there as a matter of course. And you wouldn't not do that. But whether she thought she was going to be killed or not is another thing. But that happened. That was a real case. It was tried in Nottingham Crown Court, and in the end, her mother pleaded guilty, and her mother had no remorse whatsoever.
Yeah. Have you yourself come under criticism for fighting for these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Criticism from when I go out and I speak at events, sometimes people from within those communities, South Asian communities, stand up and tell me I have no honour, I've got no shame. So they overtly say it, and they're very clear about their views about me, rubbishing my community, or you can't have loved your family, for running away and not speaking out. And I also get risks. I get hate mail. In the past, I've had threats to life. I had a threat of a bomb being put under my car. I've had all those things, but it isn't enough to stop me from speaking, because the impact of speaking out is enabling people to report and enabling more people like yourself to speak about this as well.
I heard I was doing a bit of research on this topic, and I came across Injit Singh. Have you heard of him?
No.
He's a Sikh journalist appointed to the House of Lords, and he said he was saying a few derogatory things about you, basically saying you're making a career out of this, and he said there's no honour code. He said it's all a big exaggeration and a misunderstanding of Sikh culture. Is his attitude typical of the people that have criticised you?
Jitsir Singh, is that what you called him?
Sorry if my pronunciation right. It sounded like Injit Singh. A Sikh journalist.
Oh, Indigit.
Yeah. Sorry.
And he's a journalist to the House of Lords.
Yeah, journalist appointed to the House of Lords. Sikh journalist.
The thing here is what journalists or people from that community need to recognise is that, if we start being defensive about this or start denying it exists, then we've got a problem. Okay? If you look at what's happening in Rotherham recently, okay, one of the things that came out of the Rotherham report were, here are these white girls who were being abused significantly by Asian men, right? Now, some of the responses with respect to these girls in terms of when they're reported, in terms of professionals should have protected them, turned a blind eye because these are Asian men. What was that about? That was about, oh, I don't want to cause a problem. I've been trained to be culturally sensitive. I don't want to be called a racist. I've got to be careful. It's about physical correctness as well. So that gave the perpetrators more power. Today, there are people out there who are not willing to talk openly and honestly about what that meant to those girls that were not protected, because they're being defensive about, you're picking on Asian men here. it existed, it happened. Now, what we have to recognize is, in all communities, abuse can happen, okay? We have a significant problem within South Asian communities, within Islam, Sikhism, Hinduism, and Bangladesh communities of honor systems. If people want to call me, making a career out of it, trust me, I have lost more in my life with respect to my family, sleep, lots of other things. I have 3 children on their mother's side. It's a complete blank. In terms of the loss I have personally experienced and sacrifices I have made, I stand by that with truth and integrity because I know these issues exist in these communities, and the communities who want to silence people like me and others or make derogatory comments like Mr. Inderjit Singh are part of the problem.
Oh,
so,
absolutely, yeah.
you know, he can be introduced to, I suggest he comes to our helpline and he listens to the 800 calls we receive a month, and he listens to every victim caller who has an experience of honor abuse. Because,
I wish he would, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, the girl, Jagir Kaur, who I was on 5 Live with last week, brave young woman who had her eyes gouged out by her father-in-law, talking about this devout Sikh man who controlled every aspect of her life so she didn't cause shame on the family. How can you deny, even if it was one person, that it existed? So, you know, people like him can come forward and say that, but people like him also need to take a step back and look at the evidence and actually come face to face with victims and survivors who've been through this.
Absolutely. I mean, I heard also that, you know, in the UK there's sometimes kids disappearing from school and they're being sent off to marry someone.
Absolutely.
Is that, are schools getting any better at noticing these summer holiday absences?
I'm actually meeting the Education Minister tomorrow, September the 11th, to discuss this because they're not getting better, no. And the reason why I'm prompted to meet the Education Minister is because, this is Nikki Morgan, is because I have heard in the last few weeks many teachers come to me saying, Jaswinder, we have reported in our school of girls being taken abroad in the summer holidays, and our school told us to keep our nose out of it. It was cultural. Jaswinder, what do we do? These girls have gone now. Should we wait till September to see if they come back? How can you even take that risk? And these teachers are new teachers that have only been teaching a year that said this to me. So I just wrote to her and said, this is unacceptable. I was born here. I want to be afforded the same level of protection as my white counterparts. But I'm not. These kids are not. And it's the same thing. You know, they need to be culturally sensitive, not want to offend people, etc. And that's what happened in Rotherham. That is what is happening all over the UK. And people have got to frame this for what it is, child and public protection. It's not part of culture to be abused. Cultural acceptance does not mean accepting the unacceptable.
I think also, I mean, it does seem like in the UK and probably in a lot of other countries as well, that people in positions of power who have the power to change these things, they're not, to be honest, they're not always the nicest kind of people anyway. So they're less likely to actually do anything about it.
Well, the thing is, the one thing I'm not worried about is being popular, okay? I'm not worried about anybody's vote for me or whatever. I'm going to stand up and say what I think and speak out. I'm speaking people's truths here. I'm speaking the truths of people who are silent. You know, where you have positions of power, like those people you're talking about, they have a duty to make sure these voices are heard. You know, the greater the power, the more dangerous the abuse can be, because it is dangerous not to speak out when you are in a position of power. You know, because they are actually, by not saying anything, part of the problem and allowing it to happen. They are colluding with it. So, you know, people in positions of power, and even Mr. Inderjit Singh in the House of Lords or whoever writes his laws, whatever, right, you know, he has the power to change things, and it's an abuse of power not to speak out.
Do you think that there might also be a problem with communities in the UK are a bit detached from each other, like different cultures, like, you know, the Sikh community, the Muslim community, Asian communities, different nationalities, that there's sometimes not enough an openness and mixing between different cultures. Like you mentioned that sometimes you were told maybe not to mix with white people, and that isn't that also part of the problem? That cultures aren't mixing enough, so people aren't sharing views, and there's not enough openness. You know? Well, yeah. The thing is, you're talking about integration as well, and with respect to honor systems and the girls that we deal with, part of the threat is integration. They're not allowed to integrate because that is deemed as dishonourable, so they're kept away from integrating. You know, and I think that is part of the problem in terms of, you know, in schools as well, and the segregation that goes on. I think Trevor Phillips talks about sleepwalking into segregation, and communities, you know, living in particular areas with communities, not from other communities, and not integrating in, and this fear generates as well. And then, you know, prejudice happens as well, and people start thinking the worst of the communities. But with respect to this particular community where we see honor systems and forced marriages, there is a deliberate attempt to ensure integration doesn't happen. And that is a problem. If say, like, someone from a different school started speaking to say a Sikh family and started asking questions, could that person then turn around saying, you know, try and get that person into trouble and saying they're being racist? You know, that it might happen in this day and age. Well, I think, you know, talking to a family, you know, and integrating are two different things actually, because stepping into their community and their world, and you have to look at places like, you know, Bradford, whereby you've got kids in a school all from one community that will probably never meet somebody from another community ever. Yeah, that's not right, really, is it? No, well, you're talking about, you know, 99.9% of the kids are South Asian, and then they're going back into a South Asian community living in Britain. They're never going to meet somebody from another community in their life. Yeah. You know, and vice versa as well, where, you know, you've got a few non-Asian kids, but the majority are from that community. But that isn't really integration, is it? No, it's not at all. And that will affect the makeup of Britain, the beliefs, the value systems, and all the other things as well. It almost feels like a them and us scenario, to be quite honest with you. And it shouldn't be, because that is really going to create tensions and, you know, break society down, and people are not going to recognise the value of communities and the value of integration as well. And it also will create fears. Yeah, I mean, there was a new law that was passed recently in the UK. Do you think that is going to help the situation regarding forced marriages? I've been a huge campaigner for the law. Many people know that. I've been advocating for a law for 10 years, and David Cameron himself said his head was turned on the issue as a result of Carmen Nirvana's campaign. Absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, we know this is happening within communities. Whether we want to be defensive about it, deny it, you know, the facts are the facts. It is a significant problem, and it's a British problem. So if those communities are not willing to take this on board and challenge this, well, then we have a role to send out a very strong message. And that's what government have done in creating the law. They've said, this is against the law in Britain, and if you are doing this, you are breaking the law, and you will be sentenced to up to 7 years, because we are not accepting child marriage or forced marriage. So by sending out that strong message, I hope it acts as a deterrent. One of the things it's already done, I can tell you, is it's increased reporting to our helpline, because there's been a shift in how people think about forced marriage from a professional perspective. It's no longer something that is cultural in what they do. Actually, it's against the law. That's helped. And do you think the law will provide protection for anyone who's obviously in a dangerous situation? Yeah, because victims can now earn this as a crime, and the law has a duty to protect. Today, my team, Carmen Nirvana team, are at Leicestershire Police Force, training over 30 specialist police officers in forced marriage and gender-based violence. That's one of 9 police forces. We want to train all 43 police forces. Protection will only happen if officers are aware of the law, and also
they're trained to be able to support victims. I believe most people who sign up into policing or teaching sign up to teach, police, and to protect as well. But equally, we've got to make them aware of what the law looks like, what it means in terms of protection. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
because the training side of it is going to be really important. But there's a real willingness now, since the change in the law, to engage on the issue. And that is really significant for us because it's taken us years to get there.
What would you say to any woman who might be listening to this podcast who's in an abusive relationship, in any kind of culture or religion, or is in a controlling family, a forced marriage situation of any kind? What should they do first of all, and who can they go to ask for protection?
Well, I would say to any man or a woman who is experiencing this, first and foremost, you're not alone. You're one of many thousands of people experiencing abuse at the hands of the people who are meant to love them the most, their family. The worst thing you can do is keep it to yourself. You need to speak to somebody. I recognise there is a fear attached to speaking. I was taught to be silent. I understood that to talk to anybody outside your family means you are shaming your family. What I would advise you to do is pick up a phone, speak to somebody you trust. Call the helpline. Can I give the helpline number?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Our helpline number is 0800 5999 247. You don't have to give us your name. You can be a number. The people at the end of the phone are trained to respond to you, experiencing honour abuse or forced marriage. We never speak to your family. We won't talk to professionals unless you want us to speak to professionals. The point I'm making is it's confidential.
If it happens to be someone from abroad, can they still get through to that number?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody is at risk and they've been taken abroad, really we can help you, absolutely. The forced marriage unit, we have a forced marriage unit based in London. It's a government unit, and they rescue people, British subjects, from predominantly India and Pakistan every year who've been taken abroad and forced to marry. So you have a specific unit to help you if you're at risk abroad now, or you're worried about being taken abroad. You know, don't think because you're abroad there isn't help available to bring you back home. There is. You don't need to worry about not having a passport because they can get you an emergency passport. You don't even have to worry about flights because they will sort your flights out. The point I'm making is there's lots of help available, but you've got to pick up a phone, or if there's a mate listening to this who thinks it's happening to their friend, you pick up the phone and get some information for your mate. The worst thing you can do is believe what your family are telling you, and that is you're shaming them by behaving like this, or there's no help available for you because nobody is going to believe you. We believe you, but you need to break the silence.
Yeah, absolutely. If for some reason you can't get to a phone, so there's a voicemail thing on my site, so you can always leave a message there, and I'll pass it on to Jasvinder as well.
Excellent. And there's a website as well that you can go on.
Yeah, what's
and,
the website?
You know, have a read around on the website because you've got the stories of other people on there as well. Lots of info. It's www.karmanirvana.org.uk.
www.karmanirvana.org.uk. How do you spell Nirvana? Is that the normal spell?
Yeah, it's KARMANIRVANA.
Okay, excellent. Jasvinder, whether your family appreciate what you're doing or not, it's clear you're doing an awful lot to help people in these situations, and any parent will be proud of your achievements. What do you hope to achieve in the future?
Well, one of my greatest achievements is always going to be that Karma Nirvana has made a dent in the reporting and put this issue on the national agenda. That's huge. I have 3 great children. That's huge. And a grandson, by the way. And for me, I will keep campaigning. I will keep on campaigning, keep on speaking out. I'm not complacent. There's still a lot to do. We've got a long way to go yet. You know, I want to get us to a place where when anybody hears the word forced marriage or on a basis abuse, they know what it is. Mm-hmm. Every police force to have a forced marriage unit. You know, the law, we've got a new law, it's got to be implemented. So I see myself still campaigning, still out there speaking out against injustice, who knows, writing another book, at campaigning. It's in my blood. It's not going to go anywhere now.
Okay, well, thanks thanks ever so much for coming and talking to us today.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it, and I hope people listening will take some of these points to heart, and especially if there's any people working at schools, you know, if you notice people going missing over the summer, that's the period of time when it tends to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, and there will be teachers out there who know some kids have not come back. There's something we can do about that, but we need to know that you're worried.
If they need advice, they can contact you as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. 42% of the callers to the helpline are professional callers. So we want you to pick up the phone. And, you know, we want to hear your ignorances. You know, you could never offend us at all. Part of the problem is we fear offending people, so we don't ask the question. You can't do that with Common Nirvana. Ask us whatever you want, because that's the point of learning. So pick up the phone and we'll work through it to safeguard the person, which is the most important thing. Can I just say thank you, Truth Sentinel, for doing this, because it's people like you that help us reach other people. It's really important that you took the time to tweet me to say, Jazz, would you do this? Because getting the word out is everybody's responsibility, not just our charity, other charities. It's people like yourselves who may not be affected by these issues, but are bothered enough to speak out against it. So people out there, please listen to this, tweet, social network, and get other platforms for us to speak on as well.
Thanks, Jasvinder. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you very, very much for coming. Hope to speak to you again at some point in the future and tell us maybe, hopefully, the progress that's been made at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, take it easy. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
So quite a serious topic there, and one that I'm glad we can try and get involved with. I think if we're unhappy with the way this planet is being run, then it's quite satisfying if we can actually try and do something about the things we're not happy with. We may not agree on all the things that are wrong, and may not agree with each other on everything, but we can all agree that surely that this world could be a whole lot better than it is. And I think people have actually forgotten how good it could be and just come to accept the way things are. I think there will be a revolution of some type. It may be a revolution in the way people think, and for large groups of the population to all stand up and say enough, but something has to happen because, you know, there's a lot of people who don't realise how bad it is. If you start investigating how corrupt our governments are and how many of our freedoms have been taken away and how people think they're free, but actually all the land around you is owned by other people, and there's no real reason why that has to happen. Of course there can be some loose structure to our society, but it's got ridiculous, and I think we've all grown up into this world thinking it's normal, but if you sit down and think about it, it could be 100% better. And if you think that everything's okay, then you're really not looking hard enough at what's going on. That's all I can say. Okay, so we have debate shows from time to time, or at least parts of our shows will be debates on various topics. It might be stuff that we've spoken about. For example, we've spoken about positive thinking before. I mentioned that with, we talked about that with Rosemary Ellen Gooley. And today we're going to have part one of a debate about positive thinking and the positive thinking movement, and whether positive thinking actually does help create a better future for yourself and for people around you. You know, we're going to be talking about manifestation and, you know, positive thinking, and basically at the end of it, if you have the chance, go to the chat room, make your comments known there, make comments under the video. There's a vote, there's a link to a vote on whether you think positive thinking does help. You can vote yes or no on that. So we're going to go over to Anthony, our academic researcher from the previously from the University of Bilkent, now conducting further research in the AGU State University in Kayseri, east of Cappadocia, in the shadow of the Erciyes volcano. Yeah, I do have to write that down because I can't say it off by heart at the moment. We're going to talk about ISIS and then have a debate about positive thinking. So, hello Anthony.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thanks. Welcome back to Truth Sentinel. It's been such a long time since we spoke to you last.
It has. I've been, well, off adventuring.
Where have you been?
I've been to a lot of places. I spent a long time in Bulgaria, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I've relocated within Turkey.
Okay, good. So you must have, presumably this was all research for Truth Sentinel, yeah?
Every moment of it.
Good. That's what we like to hear. And what kind of things have been on your radar in the last sort of couple of weeks?
Last couple of weeks, it has seemed to me that the world has finally gone nuts. I mean, it's been a long time coming. We've been teetering on the brink of it for some time, but I think now we really have, you know, past a threshold, don't you think?
There has been some crazy things going on. I mean, over in the UK as well. I've obviously been working hard myself, so I've heard some of it, but you know, about ISIS and that kind of thing. What sort of things were you thinking of?
Well, I mean, ISIS definitely. I don't even know where to begin with those guys, but I was interested to read their manifesto. Because this is not I suppose the main point we should be discussing about ISIS, but it was a very interesting detail. Part of their ideology, as outlined by the group, is a rejection of something called the Sykes-Picot Agreement.
What's that?
Yeah, not a widely known piece of paper, but it was an agreement signed during World War I by Britain and France, and with the cooperation of Russia, about how the Arab provinces of the Ottoman Empire would be divided up after World War I. In other words, the Ottomans had most of the Arabian Peninsula, but the Ottomans were going down. That became, the longer World War I went on, the more that became one of the war aims, to make sure there was no Ottoman Empire afterwards. So then there were various discussions about what would happen, how much autonomy Arabs would be allowed to have, versus how much they would become, you know, like part of a redrawn European colonial map. And there was a secret agreement which involved senior politicians in Britain and France and Russia, and was signed in 1916, which talked about a carve-up. So all of the Arabian Peninsula would be owned by European powers. That became a huge embarrassment in 1917 after the Russian Revolution, because the Bolsheviks, having access to the documents associated with all of these meetings where the carve-up of Arabia took place, the Bolsheviks outed the British and the French. They published these papers, and it was, you know, much to the embarrassment of the British and the outrage of the Arabs. But according to ISIS and others like them, this was the first plan on which many others were modelled, and that effectively, although the British and French were outed and had to take a step back publicly from the plan, it went ahead anyway, and that is part of the reason why the Islamic world is so fragmented. So many people are turning away from the essentials of Islam. The countries have become so poor, ruled by dictators, blah blah blah. There's a sense among ISIS and other groups that these agreements, to some extent, determined the course of 20th century history in that part of the world in a negative way. So what's interesting about that, I think, is that history is really hanging heavy in recent times over the Middle East. I mean, it always has to an extent, but in recent times in particular, there are these historical episodes which really ruffle the feathers of people in the Middle East, because they feel that things that happened during the 20th century, which, let's face it, was a century of more or less unbroken horror, but things that happened in the 20th century have had disastrous consequences, which now they need to set right in some way.
I'm not sure I like the way they're trying to go about setting it right, though.
I absolutely do not like the way they're doing that, and I don't think most Muslims do either. It's terrifying, but I think it's illustrative of something that we need to be careful of. You know, I mean, as I said, 20th century of horrors, and certain things happened in the 20th century which provoked a response of never again. You know, I think we talked about this once before. After 1945, when the doings of the Nazi Party and the concentration camps became public knowledge, there was this. There were international symposia on it and all kinds of stuff, and this never again movement arose because it was agreed that genocide was just not on. Of course, that hasn't stopped it from occurring, but it's something which is, I think, high in the public awareness now, is that this is something that you just don't do. And I think that one lesson that we can learn from a lot of recent events, in fact, especially events in Iraq, is engineering countries, drawing up countries on paper, does not work and should be avoided if we want the 21st century to be any less of a horror than the previous one.
Well, it certainly doesn't look as though it's going that way, does it? I mean, it looks like it's... I mean, according to our Prime Minister Cameron, we should prepare ourselves for decades of fighting ISIS now. Yeah, and that. I mean, look, that in a sense is a crazy thing to say. The only person who would say that is a person who has decided that they are going to get on board with the American military industrial agenda, because, as we all know, if America cuts its military spending, large parts of its industry fall over immediately, and it now doesn't have the depth and breadth economically to survive that collapse. So the Americans are trapped. They've trapped themselves in a cycle of war, and the only person who would say ISIS is going to be the enemy for 30 years, for decades, is a person who is trying to perpetuate that idea, because the most generous estimates, I suppose you could say, are that ISIS has about 30,000 members. So if it's going to take us, you know, 3 or 4 decades to defeat an organization of 30,000, well, that's, you know, you can fit more people than that in a stadium. Well, this is why I believe we're being lied to constantly. I mean, I think after this beheading video surfaced, which looked very professionally made, and a lot of people suggesting that the West has got something to do with that in some ways. After this, Cameron, our Prime Minister, announced that there's going to be all kinds of new laws coming in, and I listened to Prime Minister's questions, and it was really quite scary what he said. Basically, he said that new laws were going to be introduced, and it's not just going to cover terrorists, it's going to cover anyone who has a negative effect on the cohesion of society. And I just thought, holy cow, we've got some terrifying laws coming in that are going to take away people's rights, basically, because anytime they bring in a law that is supposed to combat terrorism, they have to make it politically correct, so it has to cover all cultures. And so so basically it means anyone with any extreme views. And now obviously that can be interpreted in many different ways, but I have a feeling the extreme views are going to be people who don't agree with the conventional way of thinking, which is anyone who disagrees with the government, basically. Well, let's hope that the legal profession and the advocacy portion of the legal profession gets hold of that legislation with both hands and uses it to convict and imprison large parts of the government of the country who passes that legislation, because that's the only. It may sound bizarre to say this, but this is I've noticed an emerging trend, is that there are certain, you know, lawyers, and especially advocacy lawyers, who examine legislation very carefully to try to make politicians more accountable, and it would be a wonderful irony, especially making them more accountable internationally for things that they've done, which their own country's laws don't hold them accountable for. But I think that's true. But that's very small amount of lawyers that are doing that. Yeah, but it would be wonderful to see that turned around on the Parliament, wouldn't it? Well, you've clearly compromised the cohesion of society here, guys.
Sorry about that. 10 years for you.
Well, we could easily do that over here. We've got a child abuse scandal going on in the UK at the moment, which they're desperately trying to cover up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people in alternative media know what's going on, and it's basically gone very quiet. But I mean, it was hilarious the other day in the same Prime Minister's questions that I listened to. They were talking about getting the UK Parliament ministers to investigate another child abuse scandal that's going on outside of Parliament. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious because we need to investigate the ministers inside of Parliament, not get them to investigate child abuse outside of Parliament. I mean, apparently, according to people who've been doing research over the last sort of few decades, this kind of people who are involved in child abuse in the UK in Parliament go right to the top. Cabinet minister, it could bring down the entire government if they don't cover it up, but they're desperately trying to do it, and it involves people who are currently ministers in the government.
Yeah, of course, it would have a catastrophic effect on the government, which of course is why it will never happen. Nor will my advocacy lawyers save the day, unfortunately. But it's nice to dream.
Anything else that cropped up on your radar?
Yeah, like I said, the world has gone mad. You know, I mean, peace talks have started in, I believe it's in Wales. Yeah, the peace talks regarding the Ukraine conflict.
You might be right.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just nuts. We're now having peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, while Russia is still denying that it's involved in the conflict. So they're saying yes.
It's a bit bizarre like that. I don't know why they're carrying on going down that line. It makes them actually look a bit stupid.
Yeah, we're not fighting, but we will negotiate for peace. What the hell? But this is you know, as has been pointed out a lot, this is a logical consequence of you know, Putin's classic strategy of, you know, invasion by increments. It's one commentator mentioned that he's treated the West like, you know, the frog in the pot. You know, you throw a frog into a pot of boiling water, he jumps out, but you put him in cold water and heat it up slightly. By the time he realizes, he's cooked. And this is how Putin goes about invading a country, as we've seen with Georgia and Ukraine. And we could well see, in other cases as well, Transnistria and even possibly parts of the Baltics, frighteningly enough. But this is what he's done. He's got to the point now where he can have a peace. He can have peace talks now for a conflict which he's officially not even involved in.
I wonder whether part of the reason he's doing that is to sort of say, well, you're lying to us, so we're going to lie to you. It's just kind of like, because, you know, basically Russia doesn't want Ukraine becoming part of NATO, and I think the West have been saying a lot of lies, and so he's sort of saying, okay, well, we're not in Ukraine, then we're not. It's kind of like he's being sarcastic, maybe.
I think he would be well within his bounds to do that, because, yeah, I mean, why at this time would anyone from NATO or indeed Poroshenko bring up the topic of Ukraine and NATO? I mean, why? That's just
they're deliberately provoking him, and this is why I just feel a bit of despair and kind of really think that, you know, these people are playing with all of our lives. I mean, this could potentially result in World War III. It's not such a crazy thing to happen. Basically, the route they're going down, provoking a big country like Russia.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, meanwhile, the EU, who have been staggeringly, stunningly ineffective throughout this crisis. Much to the chagrin of people in other peripheral regions of Europe, they've suddenly said, "Oh yeah, we've got a whole bunch of new sanctions to level against Russia." That's this week, while the peace talks were in preparation.
Yeah, and Putin's response was to say, just to remind everyone that they had nuclear weapons.
Yeah. So there's clearly, I mean, I don't know. It just, like I said, the world's gone insane. I mean, this is just stirring the pot, you know. I mean, the conflict in Ukraine's killed, almost 3,000 people? We need it to stop, regardless of who's got the bigger dick. Like, it just doesn't matter, you know. We need it to stop. So, yeah, and meanwhile, in the South China Sea a few days ago. A Chinese military plane intercepted a US military plane. Intercepted rather badly, it seems, because they came within 10 meters of each other. It started out as a military interception, which is quite scary, and ended up as a near miss. They came within, remember, fighter planes, supersonic, fighter planes, came within 10 meters of each other in the South China Sea.
It's crazy, yeah.
And it's come to light since then that this is the fourth similar incident of the year when Chinese military aircraft have intercepted US military aircraft. The US government is saying that they think these are rogue pilots. This was not an official directive, but I don't know whether that's what they really believe or whether that's what they're saying at this stage because they don't want to spark a crisis, because they've got so much other stuff to deal with right now.
I think there's all kind. I think it sounds to me like Asia are kind of prodding America to remind them that they're now becoming a superpower themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that Putin went and met with the Mongolian Prime Minister or President the other day. It sounds to me like this is why I believe that they're all planning World War III. And they're all in on it, and it's going to go ahead because of the economic reasons you mentioned, that everyone wants to make a lot of money.
Well, yeah, and meanwhile, I mean, things are still, it's still increasingly crazy in Turkey as well. So Erdogan has now, he's now no longer the prime minister, he's now the president, and he has appointed a kind of Weasley-looking little man called Davutoglu as his new prime minister. Davutoglu was previously the foreign minister, and since his appointment, some very interesting things have emerged about this guy and why he should be such a close cohort of someone like Erdogan. This guy is what's known as a pan-Islamist. So in other words, he has, over the last 10 years, worked on getting Turkey's finger on the pulse of everything that happens in the Middle East, building trade links, political links, and so on. And it seemed to be a project of integration and closer ties and economically sound and so on. But he has said a few things that have worried some people. I've got a quote from him here. "Not a leaf will stir in the Middle East without Ankara learning of it and responding." That's one of his quotes. But he's also conducted research and published papers on this idea of pan-Islamism, which is a little bit similar to ISIS's philosophy of let's have one big Islamic megastate. Davutoglu doesn't necessarily advocate removing all borders and making it one big caliphate, but he's talking about an Islamic bloc, and this is causing great concern at the moment, and well, it should be, because we don't know what that bloc would look like. Maybe it would be fantastic. We don't know.
Well, I also heard that the head of Al Qaeda is talking about forming their Islamic State in South Asia now. So it's we're gonna have them all over the place. And if they're violent, there's just, instead of one particular enemy, it's just going to be spread out even more now. So this war on terror is just going to be a joke, because it's going to last forever, basically, because it's going to be impossible ever to say that the war's over, is it? There's just going to be too many people involved.
And this is something which unfortunately relates to the history of Islam. Generally, when at periods in its history when things have been more or less going well, there's been either peace or Islam has been in the ascendancy. It's been a very open religion. There's a classic image of, for example, if you think about Judaism. One of the classic images is of rabbis sitting around debating the significance of the Torah. Yeah, and Judaism has this tradition of it's a living moral philosophy of let's take our scriptures and other things that we've learned along the way and debate how to live the best possible life. Right? Islam has been the same for large parts of its history, but at times when it's been threatened, it tightens up, and that kind of openness and spirit of kind of experimentation and debate disappears, and you get a very dogmatic version of Islam appearing in its place. And unfortunately, that has happened increasingly in this kind of post-colonial era, and it happened originally in little pockets, and then you had the Iranian Revolution and other things like this, and now there are parts of the Islamic world, large parts of the Islamic world, where it's not considered to be a dialogue, between God and His people, and all trying to work it out together. It's become a dogma in many places, and that's why you get these people saying, let's reestablish the caliphate, because the caliphate that relates to the first four leaders of Mecca and Medina, the original Islamic state, in inverted commas, were two cities, Mecca and Medina, and Muhammad ruled those two cities. He was their political leader and kind of regent, and then after he died, there were four successive people who ruled after him, called the caliphs, and those are considered, at least by Sunnis, to have been extremely wise rulers that oversaw like a cultural flourishing and people becoming more pious and society becoming a lot fairer, and so on and so on and so on. And when they talk about like establishing the Islamic State and the caliphate and all that sort of stuff, they're saying let's go back to that period. So they're denying the 1,000 years or so of development of Islam in particular, and the world in general, that have come since then, which is an ultra-conservative dogmatic viewpoint.
Indeed. It just it doesn't look good. That's all I know at the moment. Talking of debates, we've got to have our debate, which we're going to have on positive thinking soon. But before we do, I do remember you were going to say something about India and a dog. Can you explain a bit more about that story?
Final proof of the world going mad. A couple of days ago, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. Let me find this. Yes, it was yesterday, in fact. So an Indian girl, 18 years old, has married a stray dog. She lives in a village in the eastern part of India, in a state called Jharkhand. Sorry, and there was an elaborate village wedding, and this girl married this dog who's been specially decked out for the occasion with lots of Hindu markings and stuff. You would hope so, yeah. I mean, yeah. This is rather bewildered-looking dog, I might add.
Maybe even reluctant.
Maybe even. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I imagine Indian wedding feasts it'd be pretty lavish, and there'd be plenty for a dog to enjoy. But yeah, so she's married a dog because it's going to rid her of some demons, so that eventually she can find her Prince Charming. That's what she said.
Very odd, very odd. But I have heard of people marrying animals before. I watched a very interesting documentary once. It was quite disturbing as well, but there was a guy who actually changed the front of his house so a horse could actually come inside his house because he'd married a horse. Anyway, yes. The thing about these kind of things, though, is although they're absolutely nuts, at least they're harmless. I wouldn't mind if people wanted to set up a state and start marrying animals. I'd be like, fine, go ahead. At least I don't have to go there on holiday. I can just go somewhere else, and these people aren't going to try and kill me. But
that is true. That is true. And to be fair, yes, it is harmless. But and to be fair, there are no divorce proceedings. So if the dog's not happy, if the dog becomes the victim of passive aggressive.
That's one thing you can say about animals is that they don't seem to be the most. Well, I suppose there are some aggressive animals around, but if we think about domestic animals, they don't do anyone any harm, do they? They're just they're fairly passive creatures, and you can actually treat them badly. I think you can learn a lot from animals. You can treat them badly, and they're still going to come back and just treat you the same way. They're very forgiving creatures.
Yeah, and certainly, and not only that, but he's going to chase the demons away. So apparently, they do that as well.
Okay, well, talking of chasing demons away or chasing maybe negative thoughts away, We're going to talk about positive thinking, and you're actually going to try and rebuff the idea that positive thinking is a good thing. So we're going to have a little mini debate on that, and I'm going to put a little voting button at the end of the show, which I'll talk about later, and give people the link so they can vote on whether what they think about positive thinking. If you were to make up a title for this discussion, this little debate, what would you say it's about? Is it about does positive thinking work, or would you think of another title?
No, I would call it the positive thinking scam.
That's a good title. So let's start with that. The positive thinking scam. I'll let you start off with, and I'm going to try and maybe rebuff some of the things you're saying.
Sure. So I think we need to distinguish between three kind of related but distinct things. Yeah, there's just a character trait of being optimistic. Yeah. Then there's times when people say things like think positively, yeah, suggesting that you should be more optimistic in a particular situation. Yeah. And then there's another thing, which is the positive thinking movement. And now this is an ideology. It's not about character traits. It's an ideology which suggests that the world is shaped by our wants and desires and thoughts, so that by focusing on the good things, the bad things just cease to exist, or at least they leave you alone and go elsewhere, as if you've created a kind of immunity for yourself. So in this ideology, thinking about good things leads to success and happiness, and failing to think about good things leads to failure and unhappiness, which is your fault because you've failed to change your thought patterns.
Okay. Can I just say a little bit here? Of
course, yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone does have their own idea of what positive thinking is. I mean, I've heard of this movement as well. I think you've got the books like The Biggest Secret, I think, which is sort of going down that idea of you create the world around you and you should think positive. But one thing I haven't heard is people saying it's your fault. That in some ways that sounds like something quite negative to me. Like I haven't heard many people saying if you're not successful, it's your fault, because that would be, to me, that would go against if someone did have a positive thinking movement, them actually point at someone and say it's your fault that you haven't become successful. There can't be that many people who actually do that in the positive thinking movement.
Well, let's put it this way. We can think of. I think everybody can think of times in their life where they feel depressed or they're sad about something, and another person tells them to think positive, and it isn't all that bad. Yeah. Either that's because you're just sad about something, and the other is that you're clinically depressed. They're very different, of course. So let's talk about depression first. Okay, so a lot of people come to this positive thinking movement because they just want to fulfill more goals in their life or something like this. Yeah, but some people try it as a way of dealing with depression, and I would say that if you're depressed, positive thinking is not the place to go, because the advice you get is really inadequate and potentially damaging, I would say. So, for example, medical research has shown, I think beyond any doubt, that depression is a legitimate medical problem. Various kinds of depression have been defined, and there's one, manic depression, which goes in cycles. So you have short periods of being intensely depressed and short periods of being intensely positive and ambitious, when you start all kinds of projects and then you get depressed and you can't finish any of them. You look around you at the the mess in your garage or whatever, and you think, oh my god, I'm a total fucking failure.
Isn't being bipolar linked to that as well?
It is, yeah. There's definite kind of crossover in those conditions. But look, one of the characteristics of depression is that people lose their usual ability to see their difficulties in perspective. So whatever problems you have, they begin to seem insurmountable. You can, of course, say that most people's problems do pale in comparison to, you know, losing your leg or I don't know, Russian insurgents invading your town, or finding out you've got terminal cancer. You know, most people's problems are a lot smaller than that. So you can legitimately say to these people, look, it's not that bad and everything will work out and so on. And probably there's a good chance you're right. Yeah. But that's part of the disease of depression, that you can no longer do that. So when these people come to the positive thinking movement, and they're all about thinking positive thoughts and changing your thought patterns and so on, basically what the positive thinking people are saying to the depressed people is, you know that disease you've got? Try not to have it. You know? Yeah,
no, I can totally understand that. I think someone with medical depression, it's gonna. I still think that thinking positively is not gonna, or going down a route of starting to change their mentality is a good route to go down. To start think positive, but I don't think anyone. Well, I don't think it'd be wise for anyone to say, yeah, you just need to do this. It's that simple. It's not going to be that simple for someone with depression. That's going to it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot more time. But I still think changing the mindset of that person is a route to go down for sure.
But I think, I mean, unfortunately, these positive thinking people just have no understanding of that, and also they're in it for the money. So they're going to accept. They're not going to make that we could call it, I suppose, an ethical distinction. They're not going to make that distinction. And another problem there is that if you're feeling depressed, which usually involves feelings of inadequacy and failure and so on, then you surround yourself with people telling you how they've changed their lives by thinking positively, and it doesn't work for you, then you've just got one more reason to see yourself as a failure. And in fact, the mind of a depressed person is in some ways on a mission to destroy that person's self-worth. This disease, when you're in the grip of it, I suppose you could say, one thing that happens is you take whatever input is around you in the environment and you try to interpret that in a way that tells you that you're crap. Yeah. So the worst thing to do is to surround yourself with you know, people who are telling you how successful and happy
I think I would agree with you that someone with long-lasting clinical depression, positive thinking alone is not going to be the only answer. I think there's going to be lots of other issues that their doctor will talk to them about. But yeah, for sure it's not. But I would say that the positive thinking movement, and I'm just using that label to encompass everything to do with positive thinking. I would say that it's not particularly aimed at manic depressives. It's aimed at everybody.
Okay, so let's talk about people who just feel a bit sad. Perhaps they're just, you know, down about things generally, or something specific has happened in their life. You know, they're grieving, or
maybe they feel a bit unfulfilled with their lives.
Yeah, that's a perfectly normal part of life, and in fact, I would argue that it's necessary to our overall well-being. That when bad shit happens, we allow ourselves to react emotionally in inappropriate ways, and if we don't, I would think it tends to make us quite fucked up, and tends to make us a bit robotic. But the positive thinking movement completely disagrees with this. It's always offering reasons why you shouldn't feel sad, regardless. You know, there's this everything happens for a reason line, for example, which it isn't specific to the positive thinking movement, but they use it a lot, and it's absolutely awful. I mean, it's awful in a number of ways, but in terms of a response to seeing a sad person, if you say, look, don't worry, everything happens for a reason, what you're actually saying to them is one of two things. First, this sadness of yours, it's not legitimate, it's not justified, you know, because there's a reason. You just are too stupid to get it. Or two, you're actually saying there's a reason why you're sad, which almost sounds like you deserve to be sad. And I think both of these are quite cruel and horrible messages.
But I would say that everything happens for a reason isn't any mantra of a positive thinking movement. I would say that's an age-old phrase, and that you can link things to that. But I would say it might be better to say that you can learn from even negative situations. You know, in fact, let's face it, most of the negative situations in our life, or most of the mistakes we made, they're the biggest learning experiences, that's where we do learn the most from. So it's a very positive way of thinking about a negative situation, but it is actually true. You make a mistake and you'll learn something from it, you know.
Yeah, I agree, but I think part of the learning is to go down through that trough of whoops, I fucked up, and really feel that, you know. That's the impetus for you to avoid the same mistake next time. But look, PT, positive thinking believers, say this kind of stuff to themselves all the time. You know, think positive thoughts, and I think they're cutting themselves off from something that's necessary to our mental health. And look, in psychological terms, if you're cutting negative, unhappy thoughts out of your psyche, what you're doing is cultivating a state of denial in your mind. Now, this denial thing, it's something which psychologists have studied a lot, because they've found that when people confront really unpleasant events in their lives, say a loved one dies, or you go through a divorce, or the end of an important relationship, when these things happen, there's a denial stage that a lot of people go through, and as a temporary thing, it has a real concrete purpose. It's part of the recovery. You know, things that we need to recover from, certain things that stop us from functioning and participating normally in our lives, and denial is something that can serve us in these situations. But the thing is, it's meant to be temporary. People who get stuck in denial, who are denying their problems, saying everything's working, I'm going to be successful, la 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 la, and don't move past that, usually end up, I would say, being very neurotic and unhappy. And these people, in turn, usually have a poisonous influence on the others around them, because they can never accept what's really going on, or evaluate things honestly. So it's impossible to address any kind of problem with someone who's permanently in denial. They just ignore it, or they blame everyone else. They're difficult people to deal with.
See, yeah, I've never thought of positive thinking in that kind of way, that it is denial. You know, if something bad happens, I've never thought that it should be whitewashed as though something bad isn't happening. I think the acknowledgement, and I think there's a lot of people in a positive thinking movement who would acknowledge that, who wouldn't say you deny something bad has happened. You accept something's bad's happened, but then you think, what is the best way out of this situation, and you start thinking positively as soon as you can. You know you can dwell, you know, wallow in misery for a while, you know. Yeah, it's almost like grieving in a way. You can do that for a while, but really, you should, as soon as you can, you should start thinking about what's the best way out of this situation.
Yeah, I agree. But I want to give you an example. So there's an author, Barbara Ehrenreich. She has written a book about positive thinking, and not a congratulatory book. She's very critical of the positive thinking movement, and she came to this. She was already a published author, but she came to the conclusion that she wanted to write this book after being diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, this is a classic story that you hear. You know, the person had incurable cancer. The positive thinking movement loves this story. The person had incurable cancer. The doctors had tried everything, no results. The tumor was inoperable, la 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 la. But these people just refused to let the disease get them down. They stayed positive. They stayed cheerful and said, I'm not going to die. I've got so much to live for. And then they just mysteriously got better. Yeah. And somewhere in the story, the word miracle usually turns up, which I really think is always a sign that there's a lot of lazy thinking going on, you know, or that someone's trying to scam you. So positive.
Now I have to interrupt slightly there. Yeah. I mean, there are scam artists around, but there are cases of miracles around the world, and having faith in something good to happen, there has been proven cases where that has worked. Now, I don't necessarily think that someone should apply that to every situation, but I think you could find cases for sure where it has worked. And positive thinking in medical conditions, I think, has been scientifically proven to actually have actually made some people better in some situations.
That's it. Yeah, but that's exactly the point. I read a quote earlier online. I just came across it coincidentally by one of the early psychoanalysts. I can't remember, Jung or Adler or someone like that. And the quote was let your positivity or let your optimism be a character trait. Don't let it become an ideology. You know? Because I agree. I mean, if something is as catastrophic as that happens to you, yeah, you can spend the last months of your life being horribly depressed, or you can, you know, enjoy and savor the time you have left, and so on and so on. And of course, that's the better way to go about it, you know. But this author, Ehrenreich, she had treatment for breast cancer. But during the treatment, doctors kept saying to her that the key was to think positively. And you know, when you're fighting something as serious and scary as breast cancer, and you're with doctors in white coats with machines next to them, that's not what you want to hear, and it's not always going to be possible to think positive thoughts when something so traumatic is happening to you. So at various times Ehrenreich expressed her fear and her anger, you know, this thing that people naturally go through when they're hit with a terminal illness, you know, why me, what did I do to deserve this, and so on. And these medical professionals lectured her for being so negative, you know, stay positive, everything will be okay. So she went onto the internet and she joined lots of forums started by breast cancer sufferers, and she found that there was a legion of breast cancer sufferers out there who had slipped into this delusion that the medical treatment was neither here nor there, that the only way to beat cancer was to stay upbeat. And these women, I mean, there were women writing books with names like The Gift of Cancer, you know.
That's pretty sick.
It is. She found like everybody who posted on forums for breast cancer was going on about this positive thinking stuff, and no dissent was allowed. So she, of course, tried to introduce a different point of view onto some of these forums, and she was basically told to get lost, go away, you need psychological therapy. So now, to me, that's just grotesque, you know.
It is, but I would say that's I guess some of the doctors involved in this situation would have probably read studies of people thinking positively, and they have, and it had an effect on some illnesses, and they had no other options because there's no cure for cancer. So it's the only thing they could offer her, because what else are they going to offer her? There is no cure for cancer, and that's another subject we can discuss at a later date, because I believe that basically there could have been a cure for cancer by now. It's basically there's too much money in it. Basically, nobody's properly researching the causes and solutions of cancer, because nobody wants there to be a cure for cancer. In fact, I think there are people that have claimed they have found the cure for cancer, but they're being shunned by the medical profession. So it is another subject, but these doctors had nothing to offer, so the only thing they can offer is positive thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I think things like, you know, the book title you mentioned, The Gift of Cancer, that's ridiculous.
It starts to get, it's like I said at the start, it's on a spectrum, and I think for a lot of the spectrum, what you're saying is perfectly true. But there's a kind of one end of the spectrum where, as I said, it becomes an ideology, and then it starts to get creepy. You know? It
does, yeah. But at the same time, if someone did have cancer, like you said yourself, the positive thing, it's not such bad advice, because if that person is going to die a year from now, like you said, what can you do? Are you going to spend that year thinking negatively, or do you want to spend it doing everything you ever wanted to do and thinking as positively as possible? Because you're going to have the most possible, the most positive year thinking that way, the more positive year than you are if you think negatively. So there's quite a big element of truth in it.
Okay. Yep. Let's talk about some case studies which involve visualizations. You know, because you know, positive thinking, it's all about goals. Yeah, it's one of these systems that claims it can help you achieve your dreams. And I think instinctively, when someone says thinking positively will let you achieve your dreams, a lot of people would just instinctively say, well, yeah, maybe to an extent, but the most important thing is to think realistically. Yeah. So be prepared for success and be prepared for difficulties. And you know, when you're embarking on something new in life, you really need to do this, because if you don't, then you're going to invest a lot of emotion or a lot of money or whatever into something that may not work. You know? So it turns out that the research that's been done on this supports the idea, which I think our instinct probably tells us is true. Like a lot of research, you know, it kind of tells us what we know. But there have been a lot of studies on things like visualizing your future success and things like this. So the first one, University of California, researchers took 2 groups of students, and they asked one group to spend a little time each day visualizing getting a high grade in their upcoming exams. They were asked to create an image in their mind's eye. So imagine themselves doing well, you know, see yourself in the exam, you understand all the questions, you do a great job. Then visualize what happens when you get your results, the big party, you know, your parents being proud of you, blah, blah, blah. So they were told to do that every day. And then there was a control group who weren't given any visualizations. Yeah, but they were just told, do whatever you normally do to prepare for an exam. But the researchers asked both groups to keep a journal where they noted down how many hours of study they did. And this is the interesting bit. The visualizations only lasted a few minutes, but the students who did them spent hours less studying, and they ended up with lower grades. Second study, University of Pennsylvania, the researchers talked to females who were dieting, and they asked these women to rehearse scenarios in their heads about food-related situations. So for example, going to a friend's house for dinner and there's lots of food there that you know you shouldn't eat while you're on this diet, or going to a party, whatever. So they took any answers, but then they categorized them as positive or negative. So if a woman said, yeah, sure, I could be at a party, I'd stick to my diet, I'd resist every temptation, that was categorized as extremely positive. Whereas if she said, I would totally lose the plot, you know, like after one drink I'd just eat everything I could see, that was classified as a negative answer. Again, these researchers found that the women with the positive thoughts lost less weight than the ones with the more pessimistic thoughts. So that the women who essentially said, no, I'm strong, I'll never be tempted, actually were, more so than the ones who perhaps had a lower opinion of their ability to stick to the diet.
Yeah, I would say about these tests, there's so many tests though, isn't there? I think a lot of these people do tests which they already sort of know the outcome, so that they can prove a theory that already exists, or an idea they already have. Because I can tell you another another trial that was done at the University of South Carolina by Barbara Fredrickson.
Excellent. Research fight.
Barbara Fredrickson tested the impact of positive emotions on the brain by setting up an experiment. She divided her research subjects into 5 groups and showed them different film clips. The first 2 groups were shown film clips that created positive emotions. Group 1, for example, saw images that created feelings of joy. Group 2 saw images created feelings of contentment. Group 3 was a control group. They saw images that were neutral and didn't produce any specific emotion. And the last 2 groups were shown clips that created negative emotions, creating images of that created feelings of fear and feelings of anger. Afterwards, each participant was asked to imagine themselves in a situation where similar feelings would arise and write down what they would do. Now, they were given pieces of paper to write down what they would do. Sort of starting off, for example, I would like to. Participants who saw images of fear and anger wrote down the fewest responses, while the participants who had seen the images of joy and contentment wrote down a significantly higher number of things that they would do. And so basically, in other words, when you're experiencing positive emotions of joy, contentment, love, you're going to see more possibilities. That's what the outcome of this. So basically, I was just sort of, I only said that just to show you that, you know, anyone can make a trial and come up with an outcome, because that's what these scientists do, don't they?
Yeah, no, it makes sense in a way. If you're in a positive frame of mind, then you're more geared to coming up with strategies.
Absolutely, and I think that is the strength of positive thinking. That when you start thinking positively, you do start to have more ideas about how to get yourself out of a negative situation. And I don't think you should. You mentioned about visualization.
Yeah.
I think the problem with your example about the passing the exams, I don't think the visualization is particularly successful when you set a deadline. When you say this has got to happen on this particular date, what it's got to be is something like your second example, where someone was trying to lose weight. Is not to say I'm going to lose weight by this day and visualize it, and basically just visualize what's going to happen, the outcome, but don't set a deadline, because you may not do it in 3 weeks, you may not do it in 4, but if you have visualized how you're going to look at a certain point, then you can eventually achieve it. It's like you've been in the boxing ring, you know, you're going to get knocked down, there's going to be setbacks, but you can still achieve that visualization of you in a slim state.
I think that the danger is, I don't disagree with you, but I think the danger is that if you put too much emphasis on this, you can get lost in your visualization.
So I sort of agree with Anthony on some of his points, and there is a danger that we deny that we're feeling bad and that things need addressing, but we're going to talk about that more in part 2, which will be on next week's episode with Sheila Zielinski. Let us know what you think, though. Go to the chat room, leave a voicemail, vote. Anyway, remember, blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth. Albert Einstein. Just reminders about donations button, which is on the About section of the Truth Sentinel YouTube channel. That's the one that's called Truth Sentinel, not Truth Sentinel 2, not any of the other sites that put up videos, which we're quite happy for people to do. And you'll find the voicemail section on there as well. Just have a quick check. Go to YouTube, type in Truth Sentinel, make sure you know where the real channel is. Okay. But we do thank people who are supporting us for putting up our videos as well. Basically, just a quick reminder regarding the t-shirts. £28 donation will get you a t-shirt. Send me an email before, if you like. If you want to do that before you make a donation, fine. I can just give you more details. Basically, all I need to know is your address, your size. I've got small, medium, large, and extra large. The Ukrainian, these are made in Ukraine. Okay, so we're trying to support the economy over there as well. And the sizes are quite small. So if you're normally a large, you might want to go for extra large. If you usually buy a medium, you might want to get a large instead. So send me your address, your size, and then you can do that before you make a donation. Once I get confirmation, I'll send you a t-shirt. Also, we've teamed up with another t-shirt company, not the same one where we get our t-shirts made in Ukraine, but another company. The name is Truth T-shirts, and that's from trutht-shirts.com. Now we've made an agreement with them that any t-shirt you buy there, Truth Sentinel listeners get a 10% discount. You need to type in a code. I don't know whether it's case sensitive, but it's Truth1. Truth in capital letters 1. So the code is Truth1, and you get your 10% discount. And they will also donate £2.50 to Truth Sentinel channel. So you get 10% discount, and you make a donation, you get a political t-shirt which lets people around you know the way you're thinking and where you stand. And I think this is part of the thing we can do, is to let people realize that there's other people out there questioning the truth, and the more and more people they see, the more I think other people will come out and start questioning as well. They also do customized t-shirts if you're going on a protest march or something, and they're quite reasonably priced. I mean, they're cheaper than our Truth Sentinel t-shirts. I mean, I'm only saying £28 because that sort of includes a donation as well to Truth Sentinel, by the way. Their t-shirts, quite a lot of them under the £20 mark anyway. and they've got quite a choice. I'll be putting up some photos on this episode, as well as political photos, and political things that I've been sending out on Twitter. During the week, when I have time, I send out political messages on Twitter, and I thought a good way of using them again is to put them up on the episode. Let me know what you think, though, because like I said before, and I do mean it, this is a community channel, and if you don't like those things that I'm putting up, then just let me know and I'll take them down. And let me know also how you think this channel could be improved, things we could do. We're basically about spreading tolerance, looking for a peaceful yet revolutionary change to make a better society, addressing issues that we see at the moment, such as missing planes, honor killings, things like that, you know, things that we can try and affect anyway. Okay, thanks again to Kieran P with his promotion efforts, and appreciate any help any of you can give into making this channel more popular, more listeners, spreading the message out, doing publicity stunts. We need to get a different way of thinking out to a wider audience, to tens of thousands, really. I'm not doing this just as an entertainment. I'm certainly not doing it for money. We make a loss at the moment, and I really feel that the world is in a dire situation and we need to do something about it. Anyway, don't forget to come and say hi, leave a voicemail, or email me, scottsentinel9@gmail.com, for any reason. If you want to say hello, if you want to leave a comment, if you want to come on as a guest, if you want to suggest a guest. Topics coming up in future episodes could include Fukushima, Chernobyl, missing persons, time travel, the Dyatlov Pass incident, religious cults, utopia, revelations, end times, Noah's Ark, all kinds of things basically. Other shows that we listen to: Hagman and Hagman, Freeman Fly, Mark Cockin, John Gary, David Icke, Pete Wickert, Sheila Zielinski, who's going to be joining us next episode. Please contact us for any sponsorship, any advertisers, scottsentinel9@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening. Have a great week. Catch you later. Goodbye.